And then so you got a period or beyond to figure this out and get more goals than Carolina. And maybe it takes one, maybe it takes more. And Carolina's the one that came out. They were the aggressors. So they got the early goal. And then they were able to get the first 2-goal lead of the game, and that's when you kind of knew that was probably it. It was going to be hard to come back on this Carolina team, just simply because not only did they have a 2-goal lead 8 minutes into the third period, but they also had taken over the game, right? All the momentum was on their side, and they had just taken control and seized control of the game. So that's what happens. It's one game. We've learned. We've been through this before. We've talked about this for many, many years. So every game is different, is in and of itself, right? You cannot judge a series by a game, because if you do that, you're going to get burned, because the next game can look totally different. And for the Predators' sake, that's what they're hoping for, and they're hoping to even it up and come back Friday night, tied at 1.
I think you're spot on with your assessment. And, our guests that we've had on that have broken down the series, I think all of the people that have been predicting Carolina, they would have watched that game and said, see, this is what I told you. Carolina's just really good. They're better than the Predators, and that's how the game was supposed to go. I think if you're the Predators, and I think you heard this from John Hines after the game, just as you pointed out, Darren, it's a 2-2 game going into the third period. Predators played a pretty good hockey game up until then, and they just couldn't find a way to get to the finish line. You're going to have to weather some storms, particularly when the series is in Carolina. Carolina is going to have stretches where they have the upper hand. They're just that good. You've got to be able to battle through those, get a couple of big saves, make sure you don't have any breakdowns on coverage. Don't take any needless penalties. And so I thought Nashville, they played okay last night. They played a pretty good road game. But pretty good isn't going to beat them there. No. It's just not going to you're not going to get a road win by playing pretty well.
Nope.
You're going to have to play your best. And they've got to find a way to get a little bit more in terms of pressure on them, and they've got to give up a little bit less. They cannot afford to have any breakdowns, right? Because it'll cost them against that team. They've got to be better, and I think they can be better.
Oh, yeah, but here's the thing. And I was thinking about this last night and this morning as I was Dale Earnhardt Jr.ing my way to the studio.
Hope you didn't hit any walls.
I did not.
Or any cars.
No, it was good.
Did you have the Hans device on?
I needed it. Very good, by the way, Willie. That was good.
Did the metal hit the floor there? Did you get after it?
I wanted to make sure that I was here after the internet.
It's a big discussion. It's a big day on the show.
See, this was a day when you needed my Hemi, right? That's when
I did need the
Hemi.
I did need the Hemi. But I think we all have watched sports long enough to be able to know the difference between a good team, a really good team, and an elite team. And when I watch the Carolina Hurricanes and have watched them this year, they have different phases that they can go to in the course of a game. And when it's tied 2-2 going into the third period, they hit a switch and they go to a different place, a different level. And I just don't know, and I've thought this going into this series, even before the Predators qualified for the playoffs, when they went on this run starting in mid-March, it was like, hey, this is great, this is good, but do they have that next level, or is this it? Is the pedal on the floor for that level? And it's one game, got to see it in another game, see if they can go to a different place. The lineup, I know a lot of people have questioned that. I do believe there will be some changes, but I wasn't, I'm not one of those beating on John Hines for the lineup decisions that he made. I just think that Carolina has a different level that they can go to, and you saw it last night. They were already, as you said, Darren, they were playing better in the second period, but the score was tied, and they go, okay, well, we got to close this out. And so they have that closer's mentality. And the Predators, I just don't know if they have that. Again, it's one game, but that's something that really stood out to me, is you could just tell that there was a discussion in the room, the switch was flipped, and they went out and they closed it out.
For all the people that thought John Hines was a little testy, with some of the questions last night about the lineup changes, this is just my 2 cents. You guys weigh in. I'm sure you guys all heard the post-game audio. I don't believe he was testy about that. Look, he knew that he was going to get asked about lineup changes going into game 2. I think really what I sensed his frustration, and rightfully so, is just the stick penalties, right? Like,
yes.
How many times have we talked
to,
former players, Hal Gill, Terry Cribb? I mean, I don't need to go through the list, right? We talk to former players all the time, people with so much knowledge about the game, and sometimes there are penalties that are acceptable for coaches, right, and players, and others, there just aren't, because you can control your stick, right? That is in your hands. Sometimes being aggressive or doing some things to help your team in a certain situation or spot, coaches will look the other way. They're like, they get that, right? Are you trying to get a spark or what have you, or there's a breakaway, you're trying to prevent a goal. So, certain times it's okay, it's more acceptable to take penalties. But you think about it. They get an interference call in Kelly Yarncroke right out of the gates. Less than a minute in. Did he interfere with his stick? He did. Did McGinn embellish? Oh, he absolutely did. And they got the call right. I mean,
they did.
Nashville SC would have applauded with McGinn. I mean, that was a soccer flop if I've ever seen one. But Kelly Yarncroke did interfere with his stick, and good for them for actually calling McGinn for embellishment, because he absolutely embellished. So they get a break there because it turned into a 4-on-4 situation. Carrier got caught for tripping. Johansson got called for tripping. Forsberg got called for high sticking and was dangerously close to being a double minor. Could have been a 4-minute penalty.
I was concerned about that.
They were looking for blood, and then Yossi had the holding call. Those are all stick penalties. The unsportsmanlike conducts, as I said in postgame, like the Teravainen, or the Fogle and Duchene. I was like, really? I mean, this is the playoffs. I mean, they were consistent.
They could have just said, cool it, guys.
But here's the thing, though. I will say this, and I did say this last night. It was very apparent that they were not going to let this game get out of control. I mean, they set the precedent right from the jump, as I just said, with embellishment. When you're calling embellishment, you're telling them, look, this thing's not going to get out of control. We're not going to tolerate shenanigans. I know it's the playoffs, but we're not going to tolerate it. And so did I think the Duchene Fogle, have I seen way worse and no call? Absolutely, over the years. I was a little surprised by that, but I also know that they were trying to, throughout the course of the game, they had been setting a tone of, we're not going to let this get out of control, or else you're going to be in the box. And so there were a lot of penalties called. But that, I don't know how you guys feel. I didn't feel like John Hines was testy about the lineup changes, the questions, because he knows they're coming. He's a smart guy. He knows those questions are coming. It's the playoffs. You just lost. And so there's all these healthy bodies, and people are wondering, well, what changes are you going to make, Coach?
Right.
Who are you going to put in on game 2? But I think really, to me, the tension was you could tell, and John Hines, he still was able to corral it to a point, but you could tell he was extremely frustrated with the penalties.
He was, and I think you're dead on right, Darren. And my observation of the post game, people refer to the decisions in the lineup, but nobody really asked a specific question about a specific player. So if somebody had an issue with the lineup, then ask the coach about a player that you thought was going to be in there, because, like you said, Darren, everybody's healthy. So they had 4 or 5 guys that no matter who they started, there were going to be 4 or 5 guys that probably had a argument and had something to bring to the table to be in the lineup, right? At least 4 or 5, probably 4 or 5 probably 4 forwards and at least 2 defensemen, right? So there were at least 4 or 5 fairly difficult decisions that had to be made. So I think lineup questions in a loss, everybody was going to have a question of somebody, right? Especially if they lost. But the only problem is if you're questioning the lineup, then ask about, hey, what was the decision that went into this? Do that.
You're saying be more specific.
Right. I mean, don't just refer to the line. But I think John Hines' point, I think it was clear. What did they go with last night? They went with size, aggressiveness, physicality. That's what they feel like their identity is. That's what they feel like got them there. That's what they felt like is their best chance to have an advantage to slow down Carolina. They are not going to outskill Carolina. Right. They're not going to do it. So they've got to do it with savvy. They've got to do it with defense. They've got to do it with muscle. and they've got to be opportunistic. That was the lineup they thought gave them the best chance. Now, that being said, I do think they'll probably adjust a thing or two, because I thought Carolina adjusted to they were ready to match the physicality last night. They did a pretty good job of standing up to it and not letting that take over the game, even though I thought Nashville brought it pretty strong early on. And that's what gets to the penalties, Darren. I think the penalties sap you of some of that energy. It takes a step away from you in terms of being able to drive that forecheck, and be able to be fast enough and strong enough to continue to pound away to where you see the dividends in the third period rather than the other team seeing dividends, right? Carolina is equipped to go 60 minutes, right? Nashville, you can't be sapping your best players killing penalties, which they did a great job, right? 4 for 4. That kept them in the game for a while there, but it taxes you to kill off all those penalties.
Yeah, and I think too, the lineup, and I agree with you, the lineup is probably going to be tweaked. I was a little surprised-ish that Fabro wasn't in, a little, but so maybe they look at that, maybe they look at Tolvin in to try and give the power play a spark. Who knows? But guys that aren't going to come out of the lineup, they got to play better too. I didn't think Roman Josi had a good game, and he'd probably be the first to tell you that. So guys like him, the captain, they have to play better because they're not coming out. So it's kind of an all-encompassing thing. And I agree with you, Darren. He wasn't frustrated at the questions. He was frustrated with his team because his team came out and played some undisciplined hockey, especially early on, and that was not good, and it contributed to the loss.
Yeah, honestly, I thought that pairing, Josi and Ellis, I thought at times struggled. And look, it's kind of like what you said. Well, one, it's a byproduct of they're good, right? So everybody knows what they bring to the table night in and night out. But when you're trying to beat a team like Carolina, you just have to have those guys. And it doesn't stop there. Look at the season Granlund has put in. Look how much praise we've heaped Kyle Granlund's way, centering that second line. And I didn't see much of Granlund. Personally, I didn't think that – I wouldn't say he was invisible. I thought Cunnin had some hits. But really, other than that second line that – has been praised a lot. They didn't do much.
Granlund, no shots.
Yeah, that's just not.
Cunnin, no shots.
It's just not going to get it done.
No shots. 0 shots on goal from that trio. Now, this is what you have to keep in perspective. Those guys are playing the toughest assignments, right? They're starting in the defensive zone. In other words, the puck is set up in front of UC Saros. Who's on the ice? Well, Granlund and those guys, they're going to get that.
And
who are they going against? They're going against Aho. They're going against that line. So
Brendan Moore was trying to expose the Predators' third D pairing.
100%, and they did.
Yep.
And they did.
I think you'll see change there.
Brendan Moore, I thought made a big move going into the third period. He didn't start the SAT line together, but he moved them together in the third period, and it worked. Even though it was Niederreiter that scored the goal, but Niederreiter was on a different line than he was. So it forced the Predators to adjust to their matchups. But it's like when you're playing poker, not that I play a lot of poker, but when you have the better cards in your hand, it doesn't mean you're going to win the hand, but it gives you an advantage, right? And Rod Brind'Amour has more cards to work with. That's how they got to be the number one seed. He has a great team. So he can move the pieces around, and John Hines is going to have to really get the most out of his whole team. So, I thought it was a game that was probably going to happen over the course of 7 games. But Nashville's got to respond. They've got to play better, find a way to steal one, come back home tied. And I do think it'll be easier with the matchups at home, right, because you get the last change.
We'll come back. If you want to jump in there and talk with us, you can. We're going to be wide open this hour. And if you'd like to weigh in on maybe some lineup changes or what you observed last night, what you think about the series moving forward, hey, you could take it however you want. We'll welcome your calls, 615-737-1025. That is our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You are listening to Darren, Daunic, and Chase right here on ESPN 1025, The Game. There you go. Head coach John Hines after the 5-2 loss last night in Raleigh. Game 1 going to the Hurricanes. Game 2 tomorrow night. 7 o'clock puck drop. Pete Weber and Hal Gill will have your call right here on these airwaves. I'll have pregame starting at 6. Don't forget to listen to the game every weekday for your chance to win $1,000. Yeah, it's the game's 1K payday presented by Kentucky Kingdom and Hurricane Bay. Listen for the keywords at 9 a.m., noon, and 3 p.m. When you hear it, go to thegamenashville.com and enter the keyword for a shot at $1,000. That should get your attention. So the other part is really how do you counter, what do you do? So we talked about special teams and the penalties, and John Hines was not happy, and for good reason. They had to kill off 4 penalties. Carolina came in, 4 power plays. Carolina came in as the second-best power play unit in the league, play opportunities, and that's where I want to start with this, guys. The power play has got to get better. I mean, honk if you've heard this before. It's kind of been a reoccurring theme.
The power play and the Titans pass rush are 2 things that I'm sick and tired of talking about.
Oh, my gosh, if these were drinking games, we'd all be dead. I mean, my goodness. Those 2 subject matters, Chase, right there that you just said. Those 2 deficiencies, between the Predators and the Titans. Lack of pass rush and the power play, especially this time of year, right? Simply put, they're going to have to be better. It was basically non-existent. They couldn't get anything going last night. And I know it's the easy dot to connect, right? Well, then you've got to put Tolvanen in there. And I don't say that just
have to think long and hard about that one. I do think that that's something they will consider very heavily. And I think they considered it before Game 1. They know that Tolvanen is a difference maker on the power play. And then I think what they ultimately decided was it's worth trying to put an extra herdsman in there, basically is what they did, right? They put all 4 of the herd out there and sacrificed the power play, thinking that, well, maybe the power play we can still find a way. They practiced it. They worked on some things. But ultimately, it didn't work in Game 1, especially when it comes to what they got from the power play, because they just never got – first of all, they never got set up. Like, it's hard to know what it looks like.
True.
When you can't really set up. So they've got to figure out how to enter the zone better. And remember, this is, again, what you're dealing with. You're dealing with one of the best penalty kills in the NHL. Why? Because they pressure you everywhere. You really don't get a free pass. There's not a lot of teams that can do that.
They don't
right?
sit back.
With one less guy on the ice. Usually they got to give you something. And there are some good penalty kills that sort of let you come in, but they still find a way to kill off the penalty. But Carolina is aggressive. They're looking to score, right? And if you get the pass, they're going to pressure you. They're going to get in your face. And Nashville has not dealt with that very well. They definitely didn't last night. They just could not get a look.
We got a call, so I'll be quick. I think you got to put Tolvanen back in. I think it's simple as that. He's a threat, and I want to see how he responds after not playing Game 1. Maybe there's some coaching psychology there of, hey, I'm going to sit you, I'm going to let you think about it a little bit, and then come back pissed off for greatness. So that's what I'm hoping.
I had a feeling you'd say that, Chase. Let's go to Aaron on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He wants to weigh in on Game 1. What's going on?
Yeah, I just got a few things. First thing is the Jopa line has got to be split up. That has not really been an impact since that 2017 Stanley Cup run. Arvidsson.
Now hold on. They kind of did win the President's Trophy and then 2 straight Central Division titles after the 17 run. So let's look at the history accurately. They were pretty good the following 2 years. Pretty good.
And they weren't really together much in 2017 because James Neal was here.
But other than that, Arvidsson continuously just gets bullied every game. He's not the same player he was. And I would say also, too, other than putting Tolvanen in, you've got to get a better winger to go with Poyle and Duchene. It's just not that player that can elevate both of their games. They both need a winger that can, shoot the puck well, because they're both more of a playmaking type player.
Okay, Aaron, thanks for the call. We'll talk about it.
other than not appreciating a little more of the history accurately of the Jofa line, I think he makes some interesting arguments and some worthy arguments, right? And I think this is what the coaching staff is probably doing right now as we speak, right? As they formulate the plan for whatever meetings they're going to have today, they've got to decide, what are we adjusting here? What do we want to adjust? The Jofa line, in fairness, I thought was pretty good last night, especially at the start of the game. I thought they put Nashville in the driver's seat, right? They got the first goal. I thought they put some pressure on, but as the game wore on, I thought they had a little bit less of an impact. Is that a fair assessment in your mind, guys?
I think
the numbers would bear that out too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And as we said before, the line that really was taking on a lot of water was Granlund's line. But once again, they had the toughest assignments, right? So they're going to have a tougher time generating offense, which is what's been awesome about what they've done, right? They've been doing that, but they've managed to come out ahead. They've been scoring big goals and getting stops on the defensive end. The other thing he brought up that was interesting, they tried something they hadn't tried all year, right? That was putting Jeannot up on the third line and inserting Olivier back with Sissons and Trennan. And so that's something I think they'll look at. Do they want maybe a little more veteran presence in there, a guy that's played more in that role in a Cousins or Richardson, and maybe put Jeannot back on the line with Sissons and Trennan where he has really thrived? I didn't think that group was bad, right? They got a goal. Jeannot, Hall, and Duchene generated a goal. Their numbers together, I'm looking at them right now on Natural Stat Trick. That wasn't that bad. You know, they did some pretty good stuff.
But then Jeannot was back with the Herd.
Yeah, they sort of mixed.
Game, yeah.
They sort of mixed in the third period. They shortened the bench a little bit.
Let me say this. I have said for years, Willie, you've heard me say it, and I think, Chase, I'm sure you've heard me as well. I think it should be a law. If I could make a law, I would have everybody at some point, you have to be in the service industry for 6 months. Like you have to work
absolutely
in the service industry, just so you can get a greater appreciation. You don't have to turn it into a career, but at some point in your life, whether it's you're 16 years old, you're 21, whatever age you are, you have to work 6 months. Or you get penalized. You get there's a warrant out for your arrest. I don't know how that would work, but everybody in this country should have to work in the service industry for 6 months just to get a little idea of how that works, okay, and have a little bit better appreciation for it, and maybe a different mindset toward it. I also feel like everybody should coach a sporting team. Whether it's youth sports, whatever, you should coach a team. And it's
you should
just
probably
for
ref
a season
as well,
well,
while we're at it.
Well, that probably wouldn't be, but for the sake of this conversation, I think everybody should coach a season of fill in the blank sport, whatever, anything, just where you have to make decisions, okay? Mm-hmm. And I say that because I'm not comparing any sport to what we're talking about because it's all different. But you do get a greater appreciation because it is easy. It is always easy. From our vantage point, it is always easy from the couch. It's always easy from the stands. It's always easy wherever you're taking in and consuming the game. It's always easier and afterwards to then question, what decisions were made. It's really easy. But when you're in the moment, when you have to make the decisions and all the stuff that behind the scenes, I think you could get a little bit greater. So I say all that to say I'm not questioning what was put out there last night.
I'm not either.
I do think
definitely not.
It may have gotten a little cute. Some overthinking was made, and I understand why.
It's a good way to put it.
I understand why. Maybe too cute is not the right word. How about overthinking?
Overthinking is the right way to put it.
Overthinking is the way I looked at that lineup last night. I think, Jeannot and Olivier in there to me is just a little bit overthinking. Like I said, I understand what they're trying to do. And we talked about this yesterday. Look, Carolina is going to do one thing, and Nashville was going to try to do the other. Can Nashville pull them into the trenches and down to that deep, dark, cold hole that they were trying to get them into? And they couldn't do it. And, a good team like Carolina is not going to allow that to happen. And that's smart on their part because they want to showcase their speed and their skill. But it's always easy And I understand fans. That's the part of being a fan. It's a part of doing what we do. The media asking the questions. It's what we do. And so I completely understand it, but I don't question. It's hard. Okay, it's really hard because they know the lineup. They know everything inside and out behind the scenes. And so they can make judgment calls and discuss things that all of us are not privy to, right? And they see things night in and night out and through film study and other things that they feel like could be an advantage one way or the other. I do feel like, though, with that being said, a little bit overthinking. I think they're going to have to get back in a room and adjust a little bit. I think, like I said, Olivier and Jeannot, while it's been an unbelievable story this year, I just don't think you could have them both out there at the same time. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree.
Jeannot played under 10 minutes last night. So that kind of stands out. Olivier was a little bit more at 11:25, but here's one you got to look at, and I think we need to talk about it. Duchene played 10:38. I mean, is that going to be addressed? Does that mean something? That his time was significantly reduced, and I know he had an assist last night. You brought up the goal that line produced. So you certainly have to factor that in.
But to your point, though, Chase, I've brought this up before, and because guys, we've talked about it so much. It's like, how much longer are we going to keep playing? How much longer can John Hines keep playing the game? Like, either you're mad enough to sit him or you're not. It's like, how many times are you going to keep playing Duchene and he doesn't play the third period, or he takes a bunch of shifts off? Or it's like, how long are we going to keep having this conversation? Either you want him in there or you don't. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, because
he played. I thought last night. There was not a benching situation last night. I think what happened was there was a lot of 4-on-4. There was a lot of special teams.
Correct.
He's not a penalty killer.
But
so
he played power play
there.
minutes, though. He played almost 3 minutes of power play minutes.
Right. So there just wasn't a lot of flow where you're rolling the four lines. But he has not earned, anything higher than that. And his line was not bad. Right?
But you're
if you
playing
look at
Duchene,
the numbers in that line, Haula, Duchene, and Jeannot, they're playing the third line, basically.
But, Willie, that's a little bit over 7 minutes of even strength time. That's why you're playing Duchene. You've got Duchene in there to play a little bit over 7 minutes of even strength hockey?
I think that's something. That's why I think he has been sort of on the bubble. I think that's why, when you're considering Tolvanen in, you're considering Duchene out or Arvidsson out.
But hang on. I'm considering Tolvanen in, and maybe you take Olivier out. I think Rocco should get some consideration too. We haven't really mentioned him.
But then you're playing a game of let's try to outskill the Hurricanes, and that's not a game that they want to play.
I get that, but
let's go.
I don't think they're going to go there where you're tipping the scale more on skill guys. I think there's a balance between the skill and the grit that you're trying to strike here.
Yep, I agree with that. Let's go to Cole, who wants to weigh in on last night's game. What's going on?
How's it going, guys? I thought it was frustrating to see Olivier come out flat. He's put in the lineup to be an energy guy and a physical guy, and he played flat, in my opinion. So I kind of think we ought to move him out of the lineup, move Jeannot down, and then, as I think the guy before us mentioned, either throw Tolvanen or Grimaldi in his spot up on that line. And then the other thing I was going to say is, I get having the third pairing in there, having Goodbranson and Harper because they're big. But when you're playing a skilled team as skilled as Carolina is, you can't have two defensemen back there that are absolute tree stumps and can't break out the puck. It's frustrating to see Harper
I like that.
just continuously throw the puck up the wall, not looking where he's throwing it. He's just I don't think he's an NHL caliber player in the first place. So
I'm going to say that was not a compliment, Cole. That's the vibe I'm getting.
The tree stump.
Two tree stumps out there.
Well,
no, that's a good point. We will talk about it.
I do think the third pair is another area where they're going to.
I agree.
They're going to make some consideration. We haven't really mentioned Matt Bennett.
Well, I was going to say, well, that's where I was going. Like,
one
Chase,
I can't figure out either.
You went quickly to Fabro, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. Willie, that's where I was going. Like, what about Matt Benning?
Yeah, I think Benning will get a lot of consideration. I think, once again, they felt like, let's try the size, right? Let's try the muscle. And,
Let's try the tree stumps.
Well, I mean, that's what you get. Like when you go with size, you lose a little mobility, right? You go with physicality, you lose a little bit of skill, and that's what you have in your third pair. I thought Goodbranson was pretty good, honestly, even though he's going to end up. He looks his line at -2 doesn't look good. I thought he did some good things out there. I did think Harper struggled some, and so I think that's something they'll look at.
Yeah, but they got this whole left shot thing. So does Harper stay in because of that?
That's the question. That's I think what ultimately had them putting him in.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't think both are coming out. I don't think.
So are you saying that you were more surprised that Benning was out than you were Fabro?
Yes. Because Benning played 53 games.
I
thought he was very steady overall. But like I said, I think they wanted the size. They wanted that identity. But I don't know that it produced last night the way that they hoped that it would. And so we'll see. We'll see.
And
what
that's
they do.
that's why I said what I said earlier. Like I'm not questioning that because these decisions are tough, and it's very easy once everything's played out for everybody to question stuff. I get it. I understand that's what we do. That's how this business works, and that's how it works with fans. Like I get all that, but I don't really question the strategy. I don't question the way it played out. I do think that now that you've seen it, that's one game. It is a 7-game series. That is one game, and now adjustments, in my opinion, are going to have to be made. But, I mean, look, you go with what you think. You go with your gut. You talk it over, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. That's how it works in sports. But it's, you do have to make the tough decisions, and they're tough. You have to look guys in the eye like Matt Benning and Dante Fabro who want to be out there and say, yeah, we're not going with you in game one. And so that's not easy to do. And you got to look at, Cousins and say, and Brad Richardson, Rocco Grimaldi, and Ellie Tolvanen. Hey, guys, you're not going to be in game one. It's not easy to do. I'm not envious of that role, but I do have a little bit greater respect on a much smaller level. It's not easy. But it's always easy once it's over with to question what happens. But here's the good news. Like I said, you get in there, and I think you got to make changes now. I do feel pretty strongly about that. Let's go to Kathy on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. What's up?
Hey, guys. You guys basically said what I was going to say is, number one, we talked about, a friend and I were talking about Rocco Grimaldi, his speed and everything, but I think that they tried the size because they were trying to out-muscle, because they knew they couldn't, I guess, out-finesse or out-skill the Hurricanes. But I was also going to bring up Matt Benning. I think he's done an excellent job. Nothing against Harper or Goodbranson or anything like that, but I really think Matt Benning has earned a spot. And I think he's just done a good job. Willie, what do you think? I've been watching him pretty much all season just to find out who these guys are. And I think he's done an excellent job and deserves a spot.
I think all these guys, you could make the argument. I don't know if I would use the word deserve, but are worthy. They're worthy of being in the lineup. Benning is certainly worthy. I thought, Harper, they got a lot of mileage out of Harper. It was funny, I was kicking myself because during the broadcast I was just saying, who would have thought Ben Harper would be in this lineup for game one? Because it's to his credit, right, that he has come out of nowhere. He was, I don't know, he might have been 10th on the depth chart when he was signed, right? Here he is getting a chance to play in the playoffs. So individually, for him, that's a great accomplishment.
And no sooner had I said that was the one ad. They did just the opposite. They added rather than subtracted, and there he is playing game.
Sure. He earned it. Now, Goodbranson, at least, he's played 500 and something games. Right. Ben Harper has been an AHL, 4A guy for a few years now, and he's worked his way back up. From an individual standpoint, that's a good thing. But no sooner, of course, is by giving him credit for that, he gets blown by, and the go-ahead goal is scored on his watch there. It's not all his fault, but he certainly, this is where Carolina is a constant threat. They've got 4 lines. I thought their 4th line was pretty good last night, guys. You know, you're looking at McGinn, Martinook, and Lawrence. You're like, who are these guys? You know, I'm worried about Aho. I'm worried about Niederreiter. Those guys were a factor last night. So there's nobody you can take a breather on when they're out there. So tough decisions. You have to adjust and try maybe a slightly different formula in game 2 and see what happens.
Let's go to Ben. Ben is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What's up?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Appreciate you taking the call and talking about all this stuff that some people hate talking about. I just, watching them from the beginning of the season to now, I felt like last night's game, even with the last 2 games in the season they played against Carolina, I felt like there was a lot of issues, even with our senior players, of puck control, like bouncing pucks not getting settled on the ice to start making good passes. We didn't control the neutral zone like we did the last few games. And I think that's something that before everybody's been talking about this, who's in and who's starting and who's not starting, who they sat. Going back to even some basics, there were times where Ellis would go behind Saros to go get the puck, and they just kind of mosey on back there, and Carolina would catch them with their speed on the forecheck, and then bam, we're back into playing hard defense in front of Saros again. So I think puck control and keeping the momentum up no matter where the puck is or what's going on, I think contributed to a lot of turnovers.
I think it's a good call.
It's a really good point.
I think John Hines, he was asked about Carolina's forecheck. That's one of their best attributes, right? They are the best forechecking team in the NHL in a lot of people's minds. And you got to be sharp. If you're not sharp against it, you're gonna have turnovers, and it's gonna turn into scoring chances again. And they've got to be sharper. Like we said, pretty good, which I didn't think they played bad last night, but not bad isn't going to win at Carolina. You've got to be at your best. And can we say this, guys? When your goalie isn't Superman, you see what it looks like, right? UC Saros has been Superman. He wasn't Superman last night. He wasn't bad.
Yep.
But he wasn't making the magical save that he has made for them, right? And hopefully he will in some of the games in this series. I didn't think he played. He made some big saves.
Yeah,
right?
it was the rebounds.
That's
what they were getting.
Too much traffic in front. The slot play was.
That's the thing. Like, okay, let's go. We go through the goals real quick. The first one is a magical tip. Nothing you can do about that. That's not on him.
Bouncing puck.
Yeah, it's a great tip. One hand tip by Teravainen in the perfect direction. Not much you can do. The 4-on-4, honestly, a face-off in the neutral zone with 11 seconds left and a 4-on-4 where you're about to go on the power play, you shouldn't be able to split Matthias Ekholm and Roman Josi. And that being said, it's still a great play by Stahl. He doesn't have a great angle to shoot. Nope. He puts a perfect shot in there, but Saros was, reading pass. Stahl made a great shot. But then the third period, I think those are the ones that John Hines doesn't like, because Saros makes a great save on the first play after Nashville turns it over in the neutral zone, right? And then the recovery,
you've
got to protect the house, right? Somebody you cannot let him in that area. They let him in the kitchen, right? Straight on. Only Superman is going to make that save, and Saros didn't make it on that one. But that's exactly where you want to get the puck. And then the last one, Roman Josi's got the rebound. He tries to clear it to the corner, and it bounces off somebody right back into the slot, and then it kind of slides through everybody, and it's just a chaos kind of greasy goal that happens in the playoffs. But all of a sudden, boom, it's kind of game over at that point. It goes from 2-2 to 4-2.
We'll come back, continue the discussion on the other side, wrap up the first hour. David Poyle joins us at 11:30. Right now I want to talk to you about basketball playoff time. That's right, big stakes, bigger promotions. It's time to hammer the over and score some cash. DraftKings Sportsbook has given you a chance to lower the over-under on a featured playoff game. And all players who place a bet on the featured basketball game will have a hand in lowering the over-under on the game. All you have to do is have for every 1,500 people that bet the over on the select game, the over-under will drop by a point. Every bettor who hammers the over on the feature game will help lower that game's under. The best part is when the line lowers, the odds remain at even money. That's right. You can double your money by hammering the over. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. All you have to do is download that top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that promo code 1025GAME. And when you sign up, hammer the over. For every 1,500 people that bet the over in the feature game, the line will decrease by a point. So now's your chance to improve the odds of the over hitting. So tell your friends and family this is a team effort. Hammer the over and improve your odds by doubling your money. Once again, use that promo code 1025GAME for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 years of age or older, Tennessee only. Restrictions do apply. Max bet of $25, one per customer. Offer ends on May 23rd. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. We'll give you a chance before we get out of here today to win some tickets to the Nashville Super Speedway. Yeah, Tennessee Lottery 250 Xfinity race. That'll be on Saturday, June 19th. So it'll be the trucks Friday night, the Xfinity race on Saturday, the Cup race on Sunday, that Father's Day weekend in June. That'll be out in Gladeville, Tennessee. So we'll have a question for you, and you'll have a chance to win a pair of tickets to see that on Saturday. So before we get out of here, be listening, a chance to call in and give the correct answer. David Poyle, Predators General Manager, will join us at 11:30, a little bit later than his normal start, so about 15 minutes later than normal. And then at the top of the hour at high noon from Raleigh, we will carry John Hines' press conference. We'll see if he wants to talk about any possible lineup changes.
Think he'll be asked about
that? I don't know. Do you think he'll get asked?
Well, he knows how to answer him. You know exactly what he's going to say. We'll consider those things. We'll talk about those things. The only thing that might reveal something is if, they skate some lines at practice, which I don't know if they'll actually go on the ice and do anything. I don't think they will. So he'll probably be able to keep it under his hat for now.
Got some text to read.
Okay. Let's do it.
Emily,
is this on our text line?
This is on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Emily, who gave us a nice compliment yesterday, said, "We need someone with some significant speed, and Rocco is that guy. Additionally, no one on the team hunts pucks as effectively as Rocco, and he's one of the best chances we have at getting shorties." What do you guys think about that?
Well, I was bringing up Rocco last week.
Sure.
So I can't say that I'm not surprised, or I was surprised that he wasn't in there for game one, but doesn't mean that he's not going to crack the lineup at some point. Does that mean game two? I don't know. Probably not. I kind of want to go back just, quickly on just our Matt Duchene discussion. I mean, I think we got some calls coming in and kind of had to deviate a little bit. I mean, do you guys not agree? Like, I'm okay with whatever John Hines and the coaching staff, whatever they're talking about. With Matt Duchene, whatever he's doing or not doing to their liking, because we keep having this reoccurring theme. Remember, this is a guy who missed a bulk of the season. So he's barely been in there to begin with.
Games, yeah.
22 games, I think it was. He missed 22 games of a 56-game season. And here we are still talking about Matt Duchene and, before we've talked about since coming back, he didn't play in the third period or was limited or his ice time went down throughout the course of the game. What's wrong with Matt Duchene? Nothing, no injury, but clearly he's sending a message. It just, once again, at some point, I don't care what their assessment is. Whatever their assessment is what it is. That's fine. But can you keep playing this game with Matt Duchene? I mean, he's a guy who has an $8 million a year contract. It's like either he's good enough to be in your lineup or he's not.
But don't you think that's a discussion for the offseason? I think right now they are where they are.
You're trying to win a series. No,
right.
I don't.
I get what you're saying, Willie.
Does he give them the best chance to win?
I thought he made a positive contribution last night.
Then why did he play 10 minutes?
Because that's the role he's playing right now.
Okay, but nobody else. I mean, Tanner Jeannot played 10 minutes. I mean, that's the two low. He had the second lowest ice time of any player on the ice last night.
Yeah, and I get your point, Willie. Because the big picture part of it is an off-season discussion, but this is also, as Darren said, this is the game we've been playing. I mean, nothing has really, in my mind, changed. You see the flashes, and you go, there it is, and then you see the bad stuff. So,
but why did they get to the playoffs? They got to the playoffs with what they rolled out there last night: identity, goaltending, contributions collectively from a lot of different people, not because of Matt Duchene.
Right.
They didn't get there because of Matt Duchene. So all of a sudden in the playoffs, you're going to play Matt Duchene differently than you played him in the regular season?
No, but they got there because of guys like a Rocco Grimaldi or an Ellie Tolvanen, and now Matt Duchene's taking a spot and he's playing 10 minutes.
They got there because of Rocco Grimaldi and Ellie Tolvanen. Everybody contributed collectively.
But they were part of that
Yes, everybody had a part.
I understand.
Nobody. So none of those guys all of a sudden. You're having two different discussions. You changed the discussion to who should be in the lineup. The question was about Matt Duchene. This is the role he's been playing. You're not going to change his role something radically different in game one of the playoffs.
Right,
this is what it's been.
But I'm answering your question because if that's his role and that role's not good enough and the guys that helped you get there by contributing are out of the lineup because he's taking a spot, then get him out and put them in so they can continue to do what they do. That's what I'm saying.
Matt Duchene has the highest ceiling of any of those guys.
Well,
and I
when's
thought
he going to
played-
hit it, Willie?
I was going to say,
It's been 2
we
years.
can keep saying this, but I mean, at some point, and I know he talked about
Well,
after
I
the
don't
final
think
season,
I don't think it's a given
after
that he's
the
in
final
there.
game of the regular season, his bad luck, and that's all. Once again, it's like, how long are you going to have this discussion? I mean, they're not paying you $8 million a year to play 10 minutes on the third line.
Well, honestly, that's
The second
that is
fewest
the
minutes
difference.
of anybody
that's
on the
the
team.
difference between. That's one of the big differences between the Canes and the Predators. Is they have the game breakers who have had great seasons from start to finish, like Svechnikov and Aho and guys like that. Nashville has not had that from their guys that they've invested in for skill: Arvidsson, Forsberg, Johansson, Duchene.
But Willie,
And yet
you've
they
been in
still
this
are here.
business
They
a
still
long
made it,
time. It's a
but not
results
because of
business.
those guys individually. They
It's
got
a results business. You can't keep talking about his high side or his upside.
right. So that's
It's
a discussion
results
for the
business.
off season. But I'm just saying, John Hines has got to roll with what got him here.
No, not when you're trying to win a series. No, it's not.
You
an
gotta
off-season
have it now.
discussion. It's now. It's not an off season. It's
You
now.
got three. You got 3 more chances.
Either he's good enough to help you win games in this series, or he's not. And
Well,
playing 10 minutes and a little bit over 7 minutes of its even strength, he played almost 3 minutes of power play time of the 10 minutes. It's either he's good enough to help you or he's not. There's other guys in the lineup that you need production. Like, you have to have production.
Okay, you are going up against a very balanced offensive juggernaut, right? You've got to be able to defend. That is why Granlund's line plays a lot, right? That line got them there. They're reliable defensively and offensively. Matt Duchene, the problem has been he has not been reliable defensively. So he's a guy that can be exploited defensively. You can't just worry about who's scoring the goals. Goal scoring has got it. It's a part of the equation, but it's only part of it. You've got to be able to defend as well. That's one of the reasons why they haven't played as much.
I've got to be honest. If that's the reason they brought in Matt Duchene is to defend, then this contract is yikes.
But Darren,
$8
he
million
hasn't
a year for 7
okay, but
years
that's
to defend.
Tell me something we don't already know. That's been the question for 2 years. That's a question for the offseason. I'm saying, what do you do in game 2? He's got to go with what gives them a best chance to win on that particular night.
Okay, so does Duchene in the lineup give them the best chance to win on that particular night?
I think it did last night. I think he earned that, but I don't know if he's a given for game 2. If you want to put Tolvanen in, I think Duchene's one of the guys you consider coming out.
I do too.
And Arvidsson would be one as well. Arvidsson was not a big force last night.
Fair.
No,
But you've got to be able to defend. That is
I am
priority
not
number
disputing
one.
that. I am
They're
not
not going to
disputing that.
outgun the Hurricanes. So that's the thing about Duchene. It'd be one thing if he had 20 goals, and you're like, man, he costs him on defense. But he's got 20. He had how many goals? 5?
5, I think
Yeah.
5. That was what, final game of the season?
yeah, you got
Okay.
2 of those.
So why all of a sudden you're going to start playing him 20 minutes? He hasn't earned that.
No, actually 6. Because
Okay,
had 2.
6.
So he had 2 goals, so 6.
So he hasn't earned a role that it's above what he's played. Now you can argue that maybe Tolvanen or Grimaldi should be in there above him. Then that's a worthy argument there.
Right, because you need goals. I get the defense part. I totally do. But you're not going to beat Carolina by scoring 2 goals. And if you've taken out 2 of your top 5 goal scorers from the season in Tolvanen and Grimaldi. And granted, it's not a lot, but they still were. They were in the top 5. They can score.
Right, it's
So,
a
I mean,
collective.
yeah.
They get their goals collectively. You're trying to win the game 2-1 or 3-2. Honestly, if it gets much above that, you don't like your chances, right?
We'll come back and start the second hour. Bicycle Boy, if you can hang with us, we'll get to you when we come out for the second hour. Remember, David Poyle at 11:30. You're listening to Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Second hour, Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on this Tuesday morning. Hope everybody's having a good day thus far. Darren McFarland, Willie Daunic, Chase McCabe with you. David Poyle at the bottom of this hour. We'll also play head coach John Heinz Presser from Raleigh coming up at high noon. Terry Crisp at 1 o'clock. Bicycle Boy has been waiting patiently on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What's up?
Good morning, fellas. Really quick. I thought we were going to go in there and try to out-physical the Hurricanes. At least that's what Stillman said we were going to do. But I didn't see a whole lot of that last night. In fact, I think I don't know what the stats were on the hits, but
actually Carolina had more.
Yeah, but
I thought it was a very bizarre way of counting the hits. You know, it was 55 to 48. And that's a really high number for any game. I mean, pick a physical game you saw. Sometimes the hits don't get that number. So I think they were pretty liberal with what they considered a hit. But I did think Nashville did bring a pretty good physical edge. It's just that's a hard team to get to. That team is so fast. And I did think that Carolina did a good job of answering back with a little bit of their own physicality.
Yeah. Well, here's my big picture take. And Chase kind of went there a few minutes ago. I think we put the young guys in, let them get playoff experience, because that could be a silver lining going into next year. And who knows what will happen with those guys. I mean, that's the second half of the season. That's kind of what the revival of the Preds season was. So that's my big picture take.
Well, play coach. Who you taking out, who you putting in?
They did play 4 rookies.
I was going to say,
they played Trennan, Olivier, Jeannot, and Carrier. There's 4 rookies right there.
So put your coach hat on. Tell us who you're taking out and who you're putting in.
Well, I'm definitely putting Tolvanen back in there. Grimaldi's got some experience. I don't know if we put him back in.
Who slides out for Tolvanen?
Maybe Arvey or Duchene. I mean, I'm kind of done with Duchene.
Well, I know, but it's not a maybe. You got to do it. I've told you're the coach.
Okay,
you're Coach Bicycle Boy.
I'm taking Duchene out and I'm putting Tolvanen in.
Okay.
That's about.
So you're going 5.
So are you going to keep
rookies.
Tolvanen on the third line, or are you pushing him to the first line? Where are you going to place him?
I'd probably put him on the second line. Well, where was Duchene last night? Was he playing third?
Third.
Yeah, I'd put Tolvanen on the third line, but I'm mostly putting him in there for the power play.
Okay. Any other changes, Coach?
Not that I'm going to let you know.
Lavi?
That's good.
Well said.
Is this Lavi?
Anything else, Bicycle Boy?
Good stuff.
That's it for today.
All right. Good job. We'll talk to you tomorrow for your presser.
Another thing, too, with when you're saying third line, the fourth line is not a normal fourth line, right? So that also takes time away from other lines. So when you're trying to figure out why did Duchene only play 10:38, well, part of the reason is the quote fourth line, they're not used like a normal fourth line. They're used a lot more, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, because they've earned that spot. They've earned those minutes.
They've been producing.
So that's what I'm saying. Like
that's how it works.
Some line has got to take less minutes, and they played the Jofa line quite a bit last night. Especially when you get behind, you're going to try to put your top line out there as much as you can.
I'd probably put Tolvanen with Johansson.
That's probably what I'd do. I'd put him in there on the top line. I do think it's fair to ask about. Then? Well, he said take. That's the thing. That's why
I'd probably take Olivier.
You see why I bring up that, because it's like you can talk about it. It's like, well, maybe it's like no, like make the decision. That's why I'm saying like that's what coaches have to do. Like it's not like, hey, maybe this guy, like no, you have to go to Matt Duchene. You're like, hey, dude, sorry, you're out of the lineup for game 2. Like that's not easy to do. It's all easy for us to do it and play it on radio or at home or in front of the water cooler at work, or whatever the situation may be. But I'm talking about, like, okay, then make the decisions. Who is it? I mean, it is fair to bring up Arvidsson as well. But, okay, so who you putting in and who you taking out?
So you're saying, Chase, you might try Tolvanen on the top line, slide RV down with Haula and Duchene?
Yeah. Yeah, if Duchene stays in, I would take Olivier out. I would put the herd line, beast line back together how they have been with Jeannot and Trennan and Sezins. Keep the second line as is. and just swap out just swap out Olivier for Tolvin.
I think you have to consider Cousins. I really do. I really do. I think you have to consider Cousins.
And then there's Richardson. Richardson and
have
Cousins
Cousins
are
in
sort
front
of the
of him.
same, cut from the same cloth, right? Experienced guys, edgy guys, intangibles, playoff experience. They both played pretty well with Halla. I think that's a consideration too.
But once again, somebody's got to come out.
That's right. It's tough.
So who you taking out? I do think, and okay, so I said it earlier, maybe overthinking a little bit with the Jeannot and Olivier. Well, they've been great stories. I think it's a little too much. I think somebody's got to come out. So if that's the case, then who's coming out? One or the other. I think at this point, it's no disrespect to Olivier, but he missed a considerable amount of time, and things have changed while he's been gone. I think Jeannot has earned it.
I think Jeannot's earned it.
He's earned it.
Brad says on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, there were not a lot of strong performances last night, so I'm surprised that you're talking about taking a guy out of the lineup who assisted on one of the only 2 goals scored. He's not the player that we hoped we were getting, but even at 70%, he's better than most of our current roster. We are stuck with Duchene, so we need to use him on the power play and on the third line. The coach knows what he's doing. Brad.
He was used on the power play last night.
It's
Almost
the dilemma.
3 minutes.
Don't you think that we're spelling out the dilemma that John Hines has? Because, like we said, it's not going to be a game where you're going to finesse the Carolina Hurricanes. You cannot out-finesse and outgun them with skill. You've got to grind them. And you've got to play a great defensive game and be opportunistic. But to do that, you need, like Duchene and Johansson both had really nice helpers, primary assists last night. They made a good pass, right? And got assists. So somebody's got to make a play somewhere to grind out the goals you need.
Keith says y'all still have a water cooler.
I know. Well, I mean, nobody's really doing it from the office anymore, right? So I don't think really people gather around the water cooler anymore, right? Maybe a phrase lost in the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
the water cooler talk.
If I'm playing coach, I would definitely put Tolvanen back in. So I'd take Olivier out, put Tolvanen back in, and then for the forwards for game 2, that's probably what I'd do. I would just make that one move. For defense,
okay.
That's the tough one. We had a text earlier. Gotten a few here. Let's see. Garland said, keep Benning with Goodbranson. 1 puck-moving defenseman and 1 stay-at-home defenseman. Pretty good blend. That's probably the direction I would go to.
And that gives you – are they same hand?
I was going to say they are.
They are.
Both right.
And that's
so
you can do that.
I mean,
you
you
can do that.
But
and I honestly, I think that's what I would lean towards as well. But somebody's got to play on their off.
I would probably
side.
go Harper Benning.
I'd be fine with that.
Harper on the left
I think you got to put Benning back in. Now that we've kind of talked this out, I agree. Benning over Fabro. Because Benning, there have been times this year where Benning's been taken out that hadn't been for injury that I've gone, well, okay, that's interesting. I didn't think he was that bad.
But he played 53 games. He played more than any defenseman on the team because he was never hurt. That's the issue with Fabro. I think a lot of people from afar are probably wondering, what the heck's going on with Fabro? Isn't he one of their top young players? He is, but he missed a lot of time late. He didn't have a great start to the year, right? When the team was struggling, he struggled some. And so I think it's just catching the moving train, right? He is not sure what you're going to get when you put him out there. He has made some mistakes, but I still think his future is very bright.
Let's talk about the crowd last night because Rod Brindamore has been talking about it. He talked about it last night. They had I don't know what they announced. It looked like
I think they gave the green light for over 12,000, right?
It looked
some people were
bit
saying
of
it was more than that.
I was going to say it looked every bit of it last night at PNC Arena.
Did they let some people sneak in or something with Did they keep a back door open or something? I've known people at Fenway Park. They know the secrets. They sneak in. So I don't know, but it seemed like a really big crowd.
Who are you talking about, Diana?
No, not Diana, but there are
Okay.
some relatives I have that have been known to know some of the secrets of how to get people into Fenway Park.
Is this the same ones that get into the NCAA tournament, the Final Four?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. But it was a
Oh,
factor
yes.
last night. It was an absolutely it was a factor, and you do wonder,
Gotta be.
right? Because this series is going to get some attention because of the crowds. It's going to happen here Friday night. It's going to happen again Wednesday night. Look, they're not going to back off. I mean, they look. Brendan Moore's talking about. The players are talking about it. They got a game one victory. Who knows what's going to be in there tomorrow night? Who knows? And then there's going to be a discussion here Friday and Sunday afternoon. By the way, Sunday afternoon is the game 4 time. 1:30 is puck drop on Sunday. If you did not see,
And
that came out last night. But
I
around
think the
the
crowd
league,
has something to do with that too.
when around the league, you're not seeing that, and you're going to have coaches starting to say stuff in press conferences. You watch, or organizations maybe putting some pressure on a governor or a politician to say, hey, because look at them. Why can't we do that? You don't think I was surprised honestly that Florida didn't have more in there in that series than that they had. So I do think that is good. It's going to be interesting moving forward. It looked good last night. Obviously, it had an impact on Carolina. They felt it. If that was a situation where they had 4,000 people in there or nobody in there, who knows? Maybe they didn't have the lift in the third period like they had last night.
It's a fair thing to throw out there. I think we've all wondered that, especially because the players have gone so long without that kind of impact, that kind of atmosphere, right? They've longed for it. Even we had so many reactions from players when the crowd was 5,000 or 6,000, right? And you had the standing O, and people were like, man, it was loud in there. That was only 5,000 or 6,000. Now you're going to over double that, right? I mean, it's going to have an impact. It's noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. So I think your point about the TV networks looking at that is a good one too. I'm actually rewatching the game right now here in the studio, so they just put it on.
I wonder if any coaches are going to start chirping. Like, hey, we want that.
Well, I think that's what I think the league is conscious of.
I mean, don't think Carolina didn't have a part in that. I mean, Brendan Moore did.
Oh, there had to have been, right? I mean,
Well,
up
he
till a
did.
couple
He
days before the
made
game, they
comments.
were saying, "Oh my gosh, they're going to have 12,000. We're only
Right.
having 5,000 or
Exactly.
6,000." Yeah, they put the lobby in for sure, and it worked.
Did they have a lobbyist on staff?
I think his name is Rod Brindamore. he
Yeah,
carries a lot of weight.
His name is Rod the Bod.
Yeah.
By the way, what kind of contract is he going to get in the offseason?
Oh boy.
Good one.
Oh, it's going to be
The
a good
question
one.
is, will Carolina come to the table? We know Carolina has been a budget kind of team, right?
Good luck with that if you don't. Good
Yeah,
luck.
like,
Good luck.
you don't have a choice.
You have no choice.
Well,
It was like matching
that
Aho.
seems pretty obvious to us, but it hasn't always been the case with them. I think they're going to work hard. But remember, he's a free agent, right? It's like Barry
Yeah.
Trotz. They could want him back and offer him pretty good, but he could sit there, you know what, I'm a free agent.
Yeah, but he played there. He's a Carolina guy.
You would think.
I
would
think
think.
so. I think that they had their moment a couple of years ago when they matched the Aho offer and kept Aho. It was like when the Predators matched the Weber offer. Like
That helped a lot.
that's the game changer, and you had to do it. You didn't really have a choice, and you did it, and it's going to be the same thing here.
Barry Trotz saying this morning that Varlamov is available to play tonight. And then the quote that people have been tweeting, he said, and yes, I will have a Russian goalie in net.
I love Barry.
Which has had a lot of people like myself and you guys getting a good laugh out of that.
By the way, anybody have a bold prediction yesterday they made on the show, and how'd that go?
You see this new shirt I got on today?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that was good.
Thanks, Brad Marchand.
Smells store-bought. Store-bought. If I could spit it out.
Bart,
A store-bought?
Store-bought.
we need more Bort license plates in the gift shop. We are
Yep,
at a
store-bought.
Bort.
Yep, brand new, fresh, new shirt.
Nice. Got up early this morning to get that, huh?
It's good.
Yeah. I was first one there as soon as they opened up the doors. Couldn't wait to spend that money. Boy, I'll tell you what, Taylor Hall coming
Darren's
through.
tips.
Came through big.
What's the guy, Elijah, that's, you guys got any more than picks? You got any more than picks?
Y'all got any more than picks? Darren, please.
I'll tell you what, it was amazing how many people were tweeting me when it was 3-2. Washington late.
It was getting
What's
hairy.
going
there
on
for
with
you.
your pick?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, what do you want me to say?
You're like,
It's-
don't worry about it. It's
What, I mean, right. What do you want me to say at that point? Like, it's losing. Okay. I'm fully aware of that. How about to wait till after the game and then, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it worked. And by the way, it didn't take long. What was it, about 50 seconds in overtime?
Yeah.
It's the fastest overtime goal in Bruins history.
By 1 second.
Was it? 1 second?
Oh, wow.
Orr's was 40 seconds and Marchand's was 39.
Wow. 39 seconds. Nice. I'll have another freebie.
Ooh.
Another freebie today.
I like it.
Another freebie. Phil and Frisky.
I will tail.
We'll have David Poyle coming up here shortly. We'll go on and take a break. Come back. More of Darren, Daunic, and Chase next. Hey, you'll have an opportunity to win Game 4 tickets tomorrow. Yes. Afternoon show. Stillman Company will be broadcasting live at the new Party Foul location in Cool Springs, 1914 Galleria Boulevard. Okay, that's from 2 until 6 p.m. tomorrow. A chance to win tickets to Game 4 Sunday afternoon at Bridgestone Arena. So if you're out in the Cool Springs area tomorrow afternoon to be exact, from 2 to 6, stop in there and have a chance to win a pair of tickets to Game 4. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. David Poyle coming up here in a couple minutes. Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Austin has been waiting patiently. What's up?
Oh, nothing much. I was just thinking of like line combinations, and I was looking at it, like what my suggestion would be. I didn't like the lineup. I didn't like what he did. I didn't want to go size because Carolina is so fast. Rocco is healthier than Arby, and I think his stats. I mean, Arby's stats really hasn't been impressive this year anyway, in my opinion. So my opinion for the lineup for 2, I don't know the status of Fabro. I don't know if he's hurt or if he's healthy, but I would take Harper, Gabranson out, and Olivier, and Arvey, and throw in Benning, Fabro, Eli, and Rocco.
Eli.
So Tolvanen goes on where?
Eli
Where's he going? Where's Eli going?
Eli Tollivan would be going on the first line with Phillip and
Johansson.
Johansson.
Okay, and Rocco's going.
Rocco's going to go on. Was Arvey playing on the second line last night?
So no, RV was on the first line. So you're going to move. Are you going to take Olivier out? You're going to move Jeannot back to the fourth line with Sissons and Trennan?
Yes, with the hard line.
Okay.
Put the hard line back together.
And so you're going to put Rocco there with Holland, Duchene?
Yes.
Okay, and then your third D pairing is going to be Benning and Fabro.
Fabro, yeah.
Okay. All right, Coach Austin, you feel good about that? Good luck in Game 2.
Yeah, I know. I hope so.
No, I like that, though. I mean, I'm glad. See, that's what I'm talking. Just talk it through. Like, tell us what you would do. Like, that's the whole point. Like,
that's the fun. I mean, this is part of being a follower of the team, right?
Austin, to be quite honest with you, I don't think your suggestions are crazy. Like, I'm not so sure you're not far off from what it may look like. I don't think it's going to be exactly like that, but you're not far off.
The thing about the irony of this whole thing is John Hines has used a lot of these combinations at one point or another out of necessity. Right. They've played 38 guys, right? So they had to use all these creative combinations, piecing it together, and now for the first time in a long time, they've got all these guys available. So this is where the decisions get really, really difficult.
Yeah, and I think Rocco's healthier, and I think the combinations with Benning and Fabro worked out better throughout the year than what he threw out there last night. I think that combination with Tollivan in the lineup and Cousins, I feel bad for Cousins because I like the guy. But like I said, I feel like, you wouldn't even have to put Rocco. You could either go with Cousins or Rocco because those guys are healthier than Arby.
Now, Coach, you can only pick one. You get Coach. Which one?
Which
one are you telling the bad news to?
I'd probably be telling the bad news to Cousins because Rocco has shown in the playoffs that he's played.
So it's about his speed and his production?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
If Eli comes in, he's got to bring some of that hot sauce with him.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Austin, thanks for the call.
Yeah.
Is Ellie finished for Eli? Is that what it is?
I don't
know.
There a translation I mean, a year off for Eli is probably a good thing. You can just – I don't know how he skates, but we'll find out.
I didn't know if he was kidding around. I didn't know what was going on.
I know. I can't resist either. It's like it's right there. You've put it on a tee for me, so I know we know he met Ellie.
Yeah. I honestly, like I said, I don't think that's how it's going to play out, but I don't think he's far off. I don't think it's out in left field.
But I mean, here's the thing. This time of year, and especially, just the way that a coach, not just John Hines, but a coach thinks, it also wouldn't surprise me if he rolled the same thing out. I don't think he's going to do that.
That would surprise me. Honestly, I would go more than surprised. I would be stunned.
If there's not at least one change.
Yeah.
If he rolls out the same lineup, I will be stunned.
I don't, and that's the thing. I don't know if it'll be full scale changes, but like what I said, put Tolvanen in, put Benning in. If that's it, then that would be okay on in my book.
Because remember, the game was tied 2-2 going into the third period. So what they did last night was not, and that was John Hines, I think, his main point in the post-game discussion is, hey, what we rolled out there had us going into the third period tied. You take that every time.
Mm-hmm.
Take that every time.
He did. And it's fair to point that out. I mean, he's right.
Just like last night, St. Louis, they're tied going into the third period
and then
in Colorado.
The wheels came off. Yep.
And then Colorado found another gear, right?
Well, it was almost the same thing. Honestly,
it looked very similar.
Yeah, they
very
mirrored
similar.
each other.
The team that was better all year long found another level, and the underdog team couldn't quite hang in that game. But that doesn't mean that it won't be different in game 2.
Mm-hmm. What do you think they had at the Pepsi Center last night?
It's not called the Pepsi Center anymore. It's got a weird name.
It's Ball Arena.
What is
Ball Arena.
Yeah, the jars. The ball. It's a brand. That's what the
Yes,
arena is called now.
They're not just advertising all kinds of basketballs, footballs.
The Ball family did not buy it out.
So the hockey team is playing in Ball Arena.
They love ball. They love ball.
Okay.
Because remember, John Robinson loves guys who love ball. So he loves Ball Arena, apparently. How do we get that?
Yeah,
I don't know what the crowd was.
It's LeVar bought it. It's the big baller arena.
So they sell shoes. They got do they have a pro shop that sells?
They're going to renovate this summer, and
everybody
roof is
there
be a
had
shoe.
the
big
ball
baller.
shoes.
So big baller arena.
Yeah, everybody had shoes going in with their ticket.
And it's like Miller Park is not Miller Park anymore. Like they keep making these changes.
I know banks merge and
they keep
names
having this shoe promotion. Why do they keep having shoe promotions?
I got 16 pairs of shoes.
Basketball shoe promotions at a hockey game.
Is that company still exist? Can you get?
Yeah.
Yeah. They still. I mean, anybody that wears those shoes?
I don't, but
I mean, if you ordered them, you could actually get them.
Yeah, I mean,
you know that for a fact?
Yeah, I looked it up not too long ago. It's bigballerbrandinc.com.
And you looked it up. What made you look it up randomly here recently? What made you look it up?
Because we were talking about LeVar Ball.
Really?
Yeah, this was
why?
A month or so. No, this was the show. This was on the show. I did this.
And
we were talking
recently?
about yeah.
God, remember I hit the breaking point a few years ago when LeVar was just doing the tour and everybody was interviewing him like every other day. Like, why are you interviewing him? It's just like, just let him hang out, let his sons play, and let's just see what happens instead of just like bringing him on.
You were more than over him.
Oh,
more than over him.
It was driving me crazy.
Well, the good news is we don't have to talk about the Ball family anymore.
Good.
We've got David Poyle on the line.
Let's talk.
He now joins us, Predators general manager David Poyle here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. David, good morning. How you doing?
Good. We just got to practice here, so we're going to have a few guys are going to go on the ice. I don't think everybody's going to go on the ice today. Going to have a few meetings and regroup a little bit and get ready for the game number 2 tomorrow.
So open-ended question, just your general thoughts of how Game 1 went last night.
Well, I think Carolina came as advertised, at least in my mind. I mean, they're, to me, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league. I really believe that. So, I thought we played well in the first period. I think a very even game. Obviously, getting the first goal was a really good step. And second period, I don't think we played as well. And then third period, I think they really took over the game. We took too many penalties in the first 2 periods that really changed the momentum. We did a good job in killing the penalties, but they really do change the effect of the game in 5 power plays to Carolina having this, I think the second or third best power play in the league is a dangerous formula. I think we can be better. I think that's the good news, but they played really well and everything was clicking. They got great leadership and performance from their captain, Jordan Staal, with 2 goals. So disappointing. I thought, going to the third period that we had a really good chance to win the game, but they took it up a step, and so we got to do the same thing tomorrow night that they just did to us. So a few adjustments I'm sure we're going to make here, both in some systems and maybe a couple of lineup changes. Coaches are meeting as we speak right now with the players, and going to come up with a couple of new wrinkles, if you will, for tomorrow night.
as you know, special teams was had its struggles in the first half of the season. The penalty kill was the worst in the league. Power play had its struggles, and then things turned around. The second half of the season, tied for the 7th best penalty kill in the league. As you mentioned, though, Carolina's spectacular on special teams. 2nd best power play, 3rd best penalty kill. But the power play also showed a lot of life and spark, and it had some big patches where it was really effective, and then it got a little bit quiet there at the end. It was quiet last night, really unable to get anything generated or anything going. Is it simply, like you said, maybe a lineup, a tweak with a lineup? Or what do you think you can do because obviously you look around the league, Tampa had 3 power play goals in their win over Florida. You know how vitally important it is in the playoffs, to get one of those special teams goals. What can you do moving forward to help that?
Yeah, you're certainly hitting the nail on the head. The 3 opportunities we had, we didn't generate very much at all. And so where their power play is, on the possibility of giving them great momentum, our power play, on the other hand, is actually, not creating any momentum for us, and it's actually probably giving them even more belief. So we've got to make some adjustments. We've got to make some changes. I mean, I don't know exactly what the coaches are thinking today, but they do have a pretty good weapon there that didn't play last night, and that's Eli Tolvanen, who probably is the main reason why we got our power play going in the second half of the season. So, that's an option available to the coaches, but they're not only is their power play at the top of the league, so is their penalty killing. So they are very aggressive, probably the most aggressive team killing penalties in the league. And we've got to play quicker on the power play and just do some different things because last night really kind of took the wind out of our sails with our power play. So again, they were really good, and we were okay, and we need to be better in a couple of these areas. And you're hitting clearly on them when you talk about our power play, and we got to stay out of the penalty box for sure because we can't give them 5 power plays every game.
David, I know you're the general manager and not the coach, but your observations. You're the one who brought him here and gave him the contract. Your observations of Matt Duchene last night. He had the second fewest minutes of anybody on the team, 10:38. Almost 3 minutes of that was power play. So a little bit over 7 minutes of even strength time. What does he need to do to maybe earn more time in the lineup? And overall thoughts of how he played.
I thought Matt Duchene for his ice time played well last night. He got an assist on Hall's goal. The game was disjointed because of all the power plays in the first and second period. Mm-hmm. Not only did Duchene get not very much ice time in the first 2 periods, I think Luke Cunnin, for example, only got like 5 minutes of ice time. He had more in the third period, but basically there's like 3 guys that ice time went way down based on like Hall is killing penalties, and so Duchene isn't, so he's waiting. Cunnin does not kill penalties, where Granlund, who he plays on Granlund's line, kills penalties and plays in the power play, so he's waiting. So I think the ice times were kind of representative of how the game was, not necessarily how guys performed, but I thought Duchene played well last night. I mean, that we can't take as many penalties. I mean, I said that for the 3rd time on this call, and if we can be more disciplined, then we can get our 4 lines going and create a little bit more flow and play with a little bit more tempo. I thought that that really worked against us, and when we took guys off the ice like Duchene, who didn't play as much, so that again was not a positive for us.
How did you think the young guys played in their first ever games, and then some guys that who knew that we would be talking about Ben Harper and Goodbranson, the guy that you added at the deadline, being out there in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. How did you think some of the younger, and I know those guys have experience, but maybe some of the younger guys like Carrier and those guys that were in the lineup, Olivier and Jeannot?
Yeah, we had like 3 guys with their first game. Like I thought Carrier played well on the defense with Eki. That was probably our best defense pair. Jeannot was also he got victimized by not killing penalties or playing the power play, so his ice time wasn't that high. But he did his thing when he was out there in terms of getting getting some hits. And Olivier was reunited with Sijins and Trennan, and for the most part, they did a did a good job. I think we need a better performance out of some of our higher end guys. I mean, it's the cliche of all cliches that your best players have to be your best players, and I think our best players got outplayed a little bit last night by their best players, and that's something I would hope that we could even the playing field in the next game by our top guys stepping up and having a little bit better performance.
Predators General Manager David Poyle is with us, and David, it's been interesting to hear your perspective on it, because on our show, as you can imagine, with all of these lineup choices, I mean, this is a good problem, right? And this is something that has made the team stronger. All of these players that weren't in the lineup last night that people might mention that could have made a contribution, well, all of these guys made contributions during the season. But one thing that comes to mind for me, the dilemma or the balance that John Hines is trying to strike, is that will and skill balance, right? You guys wanted to tweak it towards will, the identity, the physicality, tough to play against, all of that stuff. And that's what you're trying to do. You want that, but you've got to have enough skill to get the goal. So it seems like that's where a lot of these decisions have to be made, and they're not easy decisions.
No, and you're exactly right. You're looking for that balance, but you also need everybody to play up to their potential. And
right.
Like I said, I think we played pretty good last night, for the first two periods. But in the third period, they were clearly the better team, and they won the game, obviously, in the third period. So we do have options on the power play that we've talked about. You could put Tolvanen in. If we need more speed, we could put Rocco Grimaldi in. If we need some grit and sandpaper, we have Richardson or Nick Cousins. If you want a different look on defense, you could put back in Fabro or Benny. So, it's. I think we kind of predicted that this series you might see our lineup be tweaked every game, and I think you're probably going to see that with a couple of changes. I don't think we need a lot of changes. Again, rather than react to make a change for a change's sake, I would like to challenge some of our players to play a little bit better. I don't think we had our A game from a lot of guys. I thought it was okay, but okay is not going to get the job done in the playoffs, and we need some guys to step up to match some of their performances that they had by Carolina. So let's say a few meetings today. I think it should be mostly positive, and that we did some good things, but we can be better, and we will be better on Wednesday night.
Just a general thought. I don't know how many of the other games you've gotten to say. I certainly haven't seen every one of them, but the way the games are being called, it's always a discussion. There was a lot of 4-on-4 last night. There was a lot of 4-on-4 in the Tampa-Florida game in Game 1. Plenty of special teams to go around. Generally speaking, do you think that was a fair way to assess it? I know every game is a little bit different, but was that the right balance of sort of letting them play, but also calling penalties where they should be?
No, always depends on what side of the coin you're on, so to speak. I think I watched the Panthers Tampa Bay game, which I thought was just a fantastic game, and that had a little bit of everything, but it certainly had lots of hitting and a lot of scrums and what have you. And the officials in that game chose not to call them. I noticed right off the get-go in our game, they called Yarny and I guess McGinn on their team coincidental minors, and they did that a couple of times in our game. I guess if you're talking to the officials, they'd probably say to control the game a little bit. We need, from the Predator side, we need to have a hard-hitting physical game to slow them down, to tire them down, but we have to do that in a disciplined fashion. We have to be legal with our hits so that we don't take a lot of penalties. They certainly were more physical last night than they were in the two games that we played last week in Nashville. That was to be expected, and they're a team that's finished first in our division. They're a team that has been predicted by some to win the Stanley Cup. They're a team that has had some success in the playoffs, but not the ultimate prize either. And they've gotten beat the last 2 years by Boston. So, they're a little bit more seasoned, if you will, in terms of how consistent they've been and what the expectations are for them. So the games are going to be hard fought. I don't think the officials want to be the reason why a game is won or lost. So I'm not trying to say you can get away with a little bit more at this time of year, but nobody wants to have it be a game where you get 7 or 8 power plays. So I look for us to be better tomorrow night. I look for us to be equally, if not harder, than we played, and I mean that from a physical standpoint. And we have to change the dynamic because they, for the full 60 minutes, because 40 minutes put us in a good spot, but the game's 60 minutes long, and we just didn't have it there in the third period, and that's why they won the game.
We're talking to David Poyle, Predators general manager, joins us every Tuesday, usually at 11:15, a little bit later this week. Usually, David, I say that with a regular season matchup, there's not a lot of stock you put into seeing that team again in the playoffs. But with how unique this season is, playing Carolina 8 times, only seeing the division, do you think there is a little more that could be taken away from some of those regular season tilts that can be applied here?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no question that we know a lot about them and vice versa. And right now it's tilted in their favor, not only in the season series, but obviously the most important one in they won game 1. And, we have got to find ways to, to make some changes, because doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And that's, unless we can find some different things to do for us to get more chances to score, for us to slow them down a little bit. It's certainly advantage Carolina. So the fact that we played them this many times this year is that there's not a lot that we don't know. But as of last night, it's working more for Carolina than it is for us, and we have to make some adjustments team-wise, and we have to make some of our players have to play at a higher level if we're going to be successful.
How much this time of year, and I mean this from coaches, players, everybody within the organization and with any team, not just talking about your team, but how much overthinking do you think can take place this time of year of just knowing the importance of each game, knowing that, yes, you have a few games, you have a series, but each one is uber important? How much overthinking do you believe takes place this time of year?
That's a good question. I mean, we on purpose, and we've talked as an organization, management, and coaches about our preparation and the timeliness, or how the amount of time, I should probably say, that you spend at it. I mean, the players can only take in so much on a daily basis, so you have to be organized, you have to be prepared, you have to be to the point. And you've got to keep everybody believing, and you've got to keep everybody fresh. So you don't want to deal in it. There's got to be some adjustments, but you don't want to deal in a lot of negativity, and you certainly don't want to have your practices, say, be too long. You got to find that balance where the players are ready, they're eager, they're confident, and they believe. And that's what the next hour or so is all about here today and in Carolina, in terms of getting players prepared, both on some of the on-ice stuff and some of the some stuff off the ice. But a lot of it right now is just like one-on-one meetings, reviewing their shifts, going over some different adjustments, and trying to put everybody in a position to be successful.
We've obviously seen in this building in Nashville, a packed house, how big of a difference that can make this time of year. You were there last night, about 12,000. Knowing that a crowd can play a part in things after such a weird year.
It was fantastic last night. I just, we made. I mean, it was exciting. The game, the fans. I mean, it was like they were locked away or pent up, if you will, and somebody just let them out. And they rushed in the arena, and it was excitement. I mean, they were tailgating out in their parking lot, and the fans were a big part of the game last night, and I know we're going to have that same edge when we get back to play our 2 home games on Friday and Sunday. So it just felt so close to being normal last night in terms of what an NHL game was all about, and the fans were a huge part of it. Other than being in Carolina, I just kind of had visions of what it's going to be like in Bridgestone on Friday night.
David, we were talking about that earlier. Probably this series, because of Nashville and Raleigh, you're going to have probably a lot of coaches chirping in their press conference about getting more fans in the building because it's going to look really, really good in this series. It already has, and wait till it gets here on Friday. Thanks for the visit, as always. We'll see if this thing can get evened up after tomorrow night heading into Friday. We'll see you when you get back.
Okay, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
That is David Poyle, Predators general manager. He joins us every Tuesday on the program, normally at 11:15. He's in Raleigh, so a little bit later today. We will come back and wrap up this second hour. We will have John Hines. We will carry his presser live at high noon from Raleigh. So we'll see what the head coach has to say after practice today. So appreciate David Poyle for joining us. Right now I want to talk to you about my friends at Cool Springs MD. Yes, they're my friends because they've been helping improve my quality of life for years, and I know they've been helping a lot of you in this area become healthier and happier. And who doesn't want that? I know I do, and I know a lot of you do as well. They've been in this area since 2007, and Dr. Jeffrey Lodge is the board-certified physician over there, if I can spit it out. His wife, Daphne, is the registered nurse, and their experienced staff would love to help you in a variety of ways. They house so many things under that state-of-the-art facility there in Cool Springs at 1642 Westgate Circle. Maybe you've tacked on some unwanted pounds that you would love to shed. Well, they've got programs and products and people that can get you headed back in the right direction. Rejuvenation. Your appearance should always be important, and it gets tougher as we get older. You can sit down with their experienced staff and discuss PRP, hair removal, Botox. They do it all. Hormone therapy. Maybe you've been feeling a little bit off lately, and you're trying to figure out why. What's going on? Why don't I have any energy or any drive, or feel like I'm experiencing some mood swings? Get your levels checked, because that could affect you in one of those areas or all of those areas. And you can talk to them about BHRT, testosterone, estrogen. They do it all. If you need to schedule an appointment or a consultation, dial this number, 615-283-7291. That's 283-7291. Or you can always go to their website and learn everything about them by going to coolspringsmd.com. Third hour, Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on this Tuesday afternoon. ESPN 102.5 The Game. We'll just kind of wait for John Hines to talk from Raleigh after practice. That's coming up here shortly. All you have to do is, by the way, go to thegamenashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals this week. Buy one, get one free tickets to Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon. The weather is warming up, getting warmer temps. Look into that. Beach Bend Park is your ticket to summer fun. Double your fun and double your savings with BOGO admission. 2 parks, 2 tickets for the price of one. Get yours now at thegamenashville.com. Summer is just around the corner, guys. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, this week.
Yes.
If you look at the temperatures.
I know. You're right. This week is right. Something we haven't talked about, I think we need to talk about a little bit more until John Hines starts speaking, and then we will cut into that live. The Predators are going to have to do a better job of making Alex Nedeljkovic work a little bit harder. I didn't think they made him work. Remember, he's a rookie goalie. I thought at times he looked a little bit shaky, and I don't think that they applied enough pressure to him. It's a great story. This is a guy that was put on waivers at the beginning of the season. I mean, anybody in the league could have had him. He's put on waivers and cleared waivers.
That is pretty crazy to think about.
And now he's starting right. He just started game one and won game one in the postseason. And he was put on waivers at the beginning of the year, and nobody claimed him. And so I do think that they're going to have to – now he'll probably, now that he's got a game under his belt, adjust. The jitters will be a little bit less, and he'll probably be a little bit better. But I think the Predators – can do a better job in Game 2 tomorrow night of making him a little bit more uncomfortable. Anybody disagree with that?
Not in the least. I think you're dead on. But I think what it illustrates is how good Carolina plays team defense in front of him. One of the things that jumped out at me when you guys had the discussion with Mike Kelly, I guess it's been a week and a half ago or so, about the Vezina. And he was talking about the numbers. If you look at save percentage and goals against average, Alex Nedeljkovic is unbelievable. He's got numbers that are right up there with any goalie. But he said if you take a closer look and you look at the difficulty of shots that he faces as opposed to what UC Saros has faced, it's no comparison because Carolina is so good defensively. And I think last night was a good example. He played fine, right? But I think, if Nashville could get more, they've got to find a way to get a few more chances. It's going to be hard against Carolina. They're that good. But they've got to find a way to get more, which is why the power play, I think, you could hear it with David Poyle. He's sort of implying, hey, we've got to get more from the power play. And with that, there's I'm sure, a large discussion about Eli Tolvanen being part of the equation. Of course, they got to get set up.
Yeah.
Right? But more heat on the goalie, it's got to happen, right? If they're going to win this series, they've got to get more than they got last night. About halfway through the game, when Eric Halla ties the game up, at that point you're thinking, okay, they're hanging. They're getting enough chances here. But in the second half of the game, not enough. Not enough.
Let's do this. Matthias Ekholm is talking right now before John Hines, so let's just check in and hear what blue liner Matthias Ekholm was saying.
I think one big part of it is obviously you see the small details of every little bounce, every little battle. If you relax for just that split second, it can end up in the back of your net, and you know that every goal in the playoffs especially is huge. So I think it's more of always being aware. You can't just take a second off or just leave your guy for just a split second. You always have to be on your game and just be aware at all times when you're in the D zone, especially. So it's just, every game is huge. Every moment is huge out there. It's just like the awareness of when you're out there that that if you just relax for a little bit here, that could be the game-winning goal going not your way. So I think it's the mental part of it of always being aware out there and not giving them anything and also respect those little moments out there that they can make a huge difference in the end.
Robbie Stanley?
Yeah, Matthias, obviously Carolina very good on the forecheck. As a defenseman, what's the key to breaking through that was as aggressive as they are on the forecheck?
I think we have a pretty good plan for it. We just got to execute it maybe a little bit better than we did last night. We know they're a fast team. They're not overly obviously they were hitting a little bit last night, but I feel like they're not maybe that heavy. Like you play Dallas, you know you're going to get hit every time. Here it's more of a mindset of going back, being first back to pucks and not making sure they're not first on them when we come back, when they dump them in. So I think us maybe reading the plays a little earlier, seeing when they dump it and to be able to come back and be first, get first touch. And that would set us up better to do what we want to do when they're coming with their aggressive forecheck.
Paul Scribino.
Hi, Matthias. Just curious, the last couple months, you guys have kind of, ramped up your game, to get to this point. Is there another level, do you feel like, that you need to get to in order to keep that momentum going?
Yeah, I obviously you can just go off of one game here in the playoffs, and I think we have another level than we showed last night. I think we were close to it in the first. I thought we weared off maybe a little bit in the second, but still okay. And then 2-2 on the road in the playoffs going into third was good. Obviously, we know we need to be better than we were in the third. I think there's, as you're saying, I think there's another level to it, but so far, I think the first period was most or the closest to where we want to be. And I think for sure, as you're saying, there's more to it, and then there's another level that we can get to, and we're preparing for us to show that tomorrow.
Brooks?
Matthias, as you just said, and your teammates mentioned last night, the sentiment seemed to be we're going 2-2 into the third, and we didn't like our third period. How much is there to build on from that first 40 minutes from last night?
I think it's a lot. I think especially when you look at the first, I know everyone, you have kind of like a week off here and come into a big playoff game. It's kind of some nerves and all that you got to get out. And I think that's on both sides. But at the same time, I thought we handled the first period really well, and we got to our game. And I think even when they came with their forecheck, I thought we solved it pretty good. And I think we did it to the way that we want to play. So obviously you see, if you look at that first 20, that's where we got to get to. And also we see, conversely, you see in the third where we kind of need to be better. So there's, as I said, lessons to be learned, but at the same time, we're not trying to get too low or get too high here. So we know what we have to do, and we just got to go out tomorrow and execute it.
Do we have any other questions for Matthias? All right. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll let you get back to that raucous soccer game going on behind us here.
There we go. So there was defenseman Matthias Ekholm. John Hines probably is going to take to the podium here in just a second.
I want to know more about the soccer game. Come on.
Yeah. Well, we've got a show to do. We can't do the soccer game. We should have our own soccer game going here. I guess we can't do that.
We're
in separate rooms.
You think I could participate in that? Like, really?
You can participate. Absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Chase?
Go ahead.
Robbie Stanley from Robbie and Rex Road. He's half of Robbie and Rex Road. He is throwing out the first pitch tonight.
Yes, he is.
At First Horizon Park.
Is he wearing the tee?
I don't know. That's good. That's actually a really good question.
He's got to sport the tee.
I don't know. That's a really good question.
Ball.
Willie, that's an excellent question. I don't know. That needs to be broached.
We need to get that information before the end of our show.
We do.
Yeah.
It was brought to my attention last night that I was asked if I wanted to do it, and I've done it before, and I don't think I have. I've done it at Greer and at First Horizon. It's memorable. I absolutely love it. I would have been honored to do it tonight, but we've got baseball practice, and it was brought to my attention, like, should Chase be asked to do this? Were you asked to do this at all?
I was not.
Would you have accepted?
Of course I would have. And I actually came in this morning, and I told you I was feisty. I came in this morning, and I looked at Ryan Porth, and I said, if I do not do this year, it's you that I'm coming after. Because I want to go viral. I want to be in the not top 10 on SportsCenter. Like,
you want to be mayor of Cincinnati.
I want to be 50 Cent. I want to be – Paul Jones did it a few years ago from formerly of Fox 17. It was bad.
It was bad. It was really – yours would be probably worse.
But I said to him, I said, what would you – like, honest question. What would you do if I got up there and I just threw one right down Broadway?
We would we would know it's not you. We would go start trying to unzip the costume. We would know that's not you.
Chase gets tested for HGH.
The Scooby-Doo.
Chase, I'm not saying anything you don't know. We can laugh about this together, okay? It took you years in Gatlinburg just to throw a bag onto a cornhole board. You think you're going to fire it from the mound, a strike into home plate? Like, that's not going to happen, right?
He can throw a grenade in there.
You never know.
He couldn't.
You never know.
If the ball explodes, then maybe a piece goes to home plate, but come on.
If I do that,
60 feet, just toss it, just a toss.
If
I'm
I
talking
throw
about a heater.
If I throw a strike, for one day we are rebranding 102.5 The Chase, and I make all the decisions.
I think that's the deal. That's fair. This has to happen.
I don't think anybody would be scared by that deal. Why do you think? Now you feeling frisky? So frisky, you think you're going to throw a strike?
No, I'm just saying, what if? But again, you broached the subject, and this was never even brought up to me, which doesn't surprise me at all. Like,
well, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with Robbie's never. I don't think Robbie's ever done this before.
Robbie,
so.
and Robbie will be great. That's fine.
Have you done this?
No. And
Okay.
it's kind of like I would love to do this.
Well, Chase, there's a long season, okay? It's a long ways to go. I'm sure that we could make this happen.
No, but
okay?
this is I know what this is going to be. This is going to, it's going to be the typical last kid picked. They're going to ask everybody else, and then nobody else is going to be able to do it. And like, hey, Chase, are you available? Could you make time in your schedule to do this? Like, that's what it's going to be, because that's what it always is.
Somebody's we got a little red butt, don't they? We've hit a nerve.
Chase, I just think you need to focus on the job that you need to do when that time comes.
Hey, I'm going to be ready.
I think you can do it.
Ooh. Bad case of red butt. Woo.
I'm going to work with
you. Can you do
Chase.
pregame?
If you need it.
Can you do Preds Insiders? Yeah, hey, whatever. It's fine. I'm always here. Always ready to say yes. You know where to find me.
It's the first one of the season. I think you're going to be all right.
No, I know.
It's all right.
Chase, when you get the call, when they call your number, we're going to have a throwing session. So you're going to be prepared for this.
Nobody gets throwing sessions
Sure
before you do this.
Carl Dean, I remember Mayor Carl Dean. He used to get out and throw on the side before you go out to the mound. That's a smart thing to do. You play a little catch beforehand.
Really?
Yeah, you loosen up the arm.
Well, I understand that, but that's what he did?
Oh, yeah.
I never did that.
I did. I did it out of New York.
I'm going to go to, there's going to be a bullpen session.
Yeah. We'll throw a pen.
If I get asked to do this, there will be a bullpen session.
And if we have to do it, before you go to the park so nobody sees, right, that's fine too. We're going to find a workout area.
Yes.
It will happen. And it'll be glorious.
Oh, it'll be amazing.
From the rubber to the plate.
No, wait a minute. That's not how they. Sometimes I've experienced both. And
I know, but I think if you want the full Monty, you got to go from the rubber.
But
they usually give you the choice.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's like you can, and sometimes it's like no, you're doing it in front of the mound. That's been my experience.
I'll be ready for both.
If he does it from the mound, I feel very confident it's going to go viral. I feel very good about that.
Would you take it, or let me ask this. If you're me, should I take it as a victory if I throw from the mound and I one-hop it in?
No. It cannot have a hop. You cannot bounce it up there.
Okay.
It's like Derek Jeter told President Bush for the World Series in 2001. He had the bulletproof vest on, right? This is after 9/11. And he had the thick Yankees jacket on. And he was throwing underneath Yankee Stadium, warming up, and Derek Jeter walked up to him. And he said, "You ready?" And President Bush said, "I'm a little nervous. I'm trying to get loose." He goes, "If you bounce it, they'll boo you."
Yeah, he's right. Listen, when Derek did it, it wasn't great.
No, it was not, actually. It was not.
I have that video.
You're talking about D-Mace?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not great. It was not his most athletic moment.
Keith said, "I would expect it to go right down Broadway." He probably means that it would be so off target that it would actually go
literally
to Broadway.
down Broadway. Like, I agree with that. Like, literally, I could see it
have
going
a pretty
down
good
Broadway.
arm to get it to Broadway from.
Well, it would
that
probably
part.
hit a bus and stick on there, and the bus would take it a couple blocks. It falls off, rolls down a street. That's not.
There would be another text on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. There would be a sellout just to see Chase attempt to throw out the first pitch.
This is why we got to practice, Chase. We're going to do this. I gotta do some throwing for my shoulder too. I got to get my shoulder back in shape. So this is a great win-win situation.
Where are we?
I'm getting there. I'm now 5 months removed, feeling pretty good. There's still a little stiffness. It's not full tilt, but I'm cleared to throw.
You're clear to throw.
Yeah, I'm throwing a little bit. I don't have the full max fastball back. Not that I ever had it, but
Max has a fastball. I didn't know that.
Max Scherzer has a fastball.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. What about Max Hers?
I haven't seen his fastball.
I don't know,
but I need to throw more.
He calls a good fastball.
I got to start ramping up, get the arm back to being able to long toss a little bit here.
Kevin says, "Can we start from the beginning? Chase can't land a beanbag on the cornhole platform. I can now.
See, with practice,
that story has been told many times. It took several trips to Gatlinburg before you could throw the bags on the board. Forget holding it on the board.
It's true.
True, right?
It's true.
I'm not saying anything. We're on this trip together.
You're spitting facts,
right? But now you've come a long ways, and now you're holding them.
Eric says it's bad baseball etiquette to do a first pitch from the rubber.
I disagree with that.
Well, I'm just telling you, in my experiences in the past, sometimes they've been cool, and sometimes it's like, hey, need you to do it in front of the mound.
Yeah,
and
that
you do it
is
out
true.
there in front.
Yeah,
so
sometimes they're a little.
I've had it both ways.
Groundskeepers, they want the mound pure when the pitcher goes out there. Yep.
So I've done them for both. But Robbie will do great tonight. He will do great.
He'll do awesome.
But we do need to find out what he's wearing.
He's got to wear the Vibin shirt. He's got to do it.
He's got to. So look, we need to find out for sure if he's doing that. By the way, what are we doing? No John Hines yet?
Not yet. Currently
okay, so let's do this. Willie, why don't you tell everybody about the good folks at Lee Company, and we'll come back and probably should be pretty close to the head coach talking.
All right, we will hear from John Hines when he does his press conference between games 1 and 2 here shortly. In the meantime, I will tell you about a big sponsor of our Nashville Predators hockey coverage. That is Lee Company, and I tell you all the time about their home maintenance plan, which means year-round checkups with your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electrical systems. That is the home maintenance plan from Lee Company. They will schedule appointments, they will follow up, and they will give you discounts on repairs when needed. And over time, if you're a homeowner, you know that eventually you're going to have some tune-ups on your air conditioning system, etc. But that is where you stay on top of things. You find little things before they become big problems, and you save money over the long term with the home maintenance plan. That's how it works for Lee Company. We use it ourselves here in the Daunic residence. 615-567-1000 for Lee Company or LeeCompany.com online. Lee Company is a proud sponsor of Nashville Predators hockey. Let their decades of expertise go to work for you.
We're going to give you a chance before we get out of here. In fact, we're going to have Ryan McGee coming up here very shortly. We'll have to play John Hines a little bit later in the show, but we'll give you an opportunity maybe after talking with Ryan to get you a pair of tickets to see the Tennessee Lottery 250, the Xfinity race, which will be at the Nashville Superspeedway on Saturday, June 19th. Remember, that's a big Father's Day weekend. You've got the truck race Friday night. You've got the Xfinity race on Saturday and the Cup race on Sunday. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on this Tuesday. Don't forget Game 2 tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. That'll be the puck drop. Everything will be heard right here on 102.5 The Game. P. Weber and Hal Gill will have your call when they drop the puck. I'll have pregame for you an hour prior. And then a Friday, remember, speaking of an hour prior, it's going to be an hour earlier than normal. So 6 o'clock puck drop on Friday night at Bridgestone Arena. Pregame at 5. And then Sunday, it has been announced Game 4 will be at 1:30 in the afternoon. So we'll see if the Predators can even this thing up at 1 after falling 5-2 last night. And they'll have their work cut out. But, the big thing, and that's probably why John Hines is maybe a little bit delayed and probably trying to figure out how they're going to address the questions because he knows it's coming about lineup changes. David Poyle did discuss a little bit of that with us and really didn't run from the subject and said there may be an adjustment or two with the lineup. I think that's kind of goes without saying. Whenever you lose Game 1, that typically happens in the playoffs, especially when you've got so many bodies readily available to you. So we'll have to wait and see what those changes are. I think the most obvious, in my opinion, is what we've been talking about so far on the show is the power play. 3 cracks at it last night. Pretty much Carolina gets a lot of credit for it, but it was pretty inept last night, really unable to get anything going. So you do wonder if that will equal Tolvanen in the lineup for Game 2.
We tracked our statistician, Jay Levin. He had one chance that Nashville really got, and that was he even said, sort of a generous way of looking at it. It's not always the shots you get. It's, what kind of action do you get? Do you get set? Do you have guys in the right positions? Are you a threat? And they really didn't threaten very much last night. They had sort of an out-of-nowhere backdoor pass. Philip Forsberg had Mikhail Granlund on the backside. Difficult finish, and the puck didn't bounce his way. They didn't really get a shot out of it. But by and large, they did not threaten. You heard David Poyle say that. The other thing that jumped out at me, David Poyle and Matthias Ekholm echoed what we discussed when we just first started giving our assessment of the show. Of the game last night, at the start of the show. They said, played pretty well. But pretty well isn't good enough to beat Carolina, especially at Carolina. And I like the example that Matthias Ekholm used. He said, you can be playing really well for a large segment of the game. But the minute you let your guard down one time against that team, they're good enough to make you pay. And I think that's the 4-on-4 goal might be an example, right? Predators are about to go on the power play. In your mind, you're thinking, okay, how are we going to score on this power play? But there's 11 seconds left, and then all of a sudden, boom, Jordan Staal makes a great play. Beginning of the third period, you're just entering in, okay, it's a 2-2 game. How are we going to find a way to get ahead? And there's a little bit of a breakdown. Boom. And it's 3-2. They just can't, they don't have that margin for error, and they know it. Right, and they've played so well for the last month and a half. They understand the level they have to get to be competitive against teams like Carolina. That was the issue before, right? They were 1-11-1 against Carolina, Tampa, and Florida. Those teams were just pummeling them before they figured out how they had to play, and they were much more competitive down the stretch. But they weren't at that level last night.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, Darren, about more presence in front of the net. They're re-showing the game on NHL Network. Mm-hmm. At about the 10:30 mark in the second period, Cunnin was parked in front of the net, and there was a really good chance, but nobody else was around him. It's more than getting one guy to the net. It's the one thing that I've noticed about this team is they'll get the initial shot, the rebound will come out, and then there's nobody there to pick up the rebound. And that's what Carolina did so well. They scored on – they would get the initial shot on Saros. Saros would make the save. They're showing one right now on the fourth goal that Carolina scored. Puck goes back around the net, and then they have somebody there to clean it up. And that's what the Predators have to do a better job of, whether it's 5-on-5 or on the power play. Is just you get so much with traffic in front of the net on the initial shot and on the rebound as well, and that's just something they've struggled with.
I think they have made vast improvements in that part of their game. The Herd line has had a lot of goals like that. I think Cunnin has been really good in that area. Granlund has. But you're right, Chase. Last night, not enough of it. There's got to be that second layer. And you just need more of a sustained attack to get that second effort, right? It can't just be, well, we got down here, let's fire one on net with nobody in front just to say we have a shot. But that's what Carolina does. They're so good. They can do this they do this to everybody. It's not just the Predators. They can shut down good teams for long stretches where you're like, we haven't had a shot in how long? Boy, it doesn't seem like we've had the puck very much. That's why you have to be so sharp with your game. You heard Matthias Ekholm say, I think we have a good plan to attack their forecheck, to deal with their forecheck. But we have to make sure we execute every time. We've got to be quick. We've got to be sharp. That's how you get the puck up the ice, and you can get some chances against them. But it's hard. They make you work.
Well, they went probably the first half of the second period with no shots.
Right. I thought that was an interesting part of the game. You know, early in the second period, Carolina comes out strong. You know, they get the 4-on-4 goal. They forge ahead. But then Nashville fights back, right? They tie it up, and they go on a stretch of 5 or 6 minutes where they control the play. But that's where it started to tip towards Carolina down the stretch of the second period and then into the third. That's where Nashville just could not answer back. Maybe it was a little too much of they had to fight really hard to kill off the power plays. And maybe that sapped them a little bit. You heard David Poyle say there was so much 4-on-4, 5-on-4, 4-on-4 that turned into a 5-on-4, that sort of disrupted some of the flow of the lines that they wanted to put out there. That takes away some energy.
I think we've got Ryan McGee on the line with us, our buddy. We always enjoy our chats with him. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm having a weird day. I just got off the phone with Frank Viola.
Oh, really?
Wow,
Tell us about
wow.
So all right. So
I'm a Met fan, Ryan. You were just I just perked up. My day just got better. Let me hear this.
All right. Well, then you really like what I'm working on. So Friday is the 40th anniversary of what many consider to be the greatest college baseball game ever played. And it was 1981, May 21st, and it was Yale versus St. John's in the NCAA baseball tournament. And it was Ron Darling, speaking of the Mets, versus Frank Viola.
Wow.
And nobody really heard either one of them. And Ron Darling no-hit St. John's for 11 and a third innings and struck out 16 and lost.
Wow.
And Frank Viola was the winning pitcher in the game. And I just found out, I live in Charlotte, I just found out Frank Viola lives in Charlotte, which I did not know till I talked to him on the phone. So there you go.
I cannot wait for this piece to come out.
How did he end
up
up
a big fan
Charlotte?
of both of those guys.
So, all right, so Frank Viola's daughter played volleyball at Winthrop University, which is just south of Charlotte in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And now she is like a volleyball coach at Davidson College, which y'all know Davidson from Steph Curry and all that.
Sure.
And yeah, so Frank lives here to be near his grandkids and he and his children, and he like is a pitching coach for an independent minor league team. I mean, I'm like, okay, but as Brave, I asked him, so what's it like living in Braves territory? As the hero of the 1987 heartbreaking World Series for Braves fans, and he said he just keeps that to himself. So
yeah. Chase, do you remember Frank Viola? You remember him as a Braves fan? Remember him?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Oh, he was a smooth lefty.
We're at that age now where the other day I was filling in for Paul Feinbaum not so long ago, and I said something about Willie McGee, like my cousin Willie McGee, and I could see the 20-something-year-old producer scrambling to Google, looking it up.
That's so sad, but so true.
Suddenly I realized It's like all my pop culture references and my sports references are getting dated.
Oh man,
so
that's a bad
sad.
feeling.
So sad. You know what? Real quick, because this is not why we brought you on, but this is perfect to ask you this because this is along the same lines. You know, being here in Nashville every time, you know, whether it's Oakland or Tampa or expansion, MLB, you know, in a new market, Nashville gets named, right? Well, Charlotte is another one. Like, how serious is Charlotte as a possible MLB city for the future?
Well, I'm a season ticket holder of the Charlotte Knights, right? We're a AAA city just like Nashville is. I kind of like that. Like, I'm going to Indianapolis next week for the 500. Indianapolis has been a AAA city forever. I just think, but obviously they have the Pacers and the Colts. I mean, Nashville, Indy, and Charlotte have always, to me, reminded me of each other. And so I'm not saying that Charlotte couldn't support a major league team, but I just don't know if I don't know if they're ready, if Charlotte's ready to host 80-something sporting events a summer. You know, now back in the day, the Charlotte Knights used to have, I mentioned Rock Hill, Winthrop, they used to have a ballpark, actually wasn't in Charlotte. It was in South Carolina, just south of Charlotte, and out in the suburbs. And George Shin, who owned the Hornets, he built that ballpark. And you could tell when you went, that was built for expansion. Like, that ballpark sat 10,000 people, and you know, they could have easily expanded it to 40 if they wanted to. You could tell the way it was built. And so the thought has always been there. But I'm a huge baseball guy, but if I'm being 100% honest, I kind of dig being a AAA city. And yeah, there's no question to me, Nashville could support it. It would be like it was for us as kids. You know, you go to a Braves game back in the 80s, and the crowd would be, you know, it'd be a third locals, and the rest of it would be people who come in on buses from South Carolina and North Carolina and, you know, Alabama and all these other places. So for Nashville or Charlotte to make it work, it would have to be a really regional thing, not just in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ryan brings up Willie McGee. He was a Nashville Sound.
He was a Nashville Sound. Yeah,
so was never like a Cardinals fan or any of that stuff, but that's the one piece of Cardinals memorabilia I have. I pay way too much for one of those powder blue Cooperstown classic Willie McGee jerseys because it says McGee on the back.
Very nice. We had Josh Heupel on here just recently, and we asked him about the transfer portal. And of course, usually you have to buckle up because you never know what a coach is going to tell you about the transfer portal. We've talked about it a bunch on this show. What are your overall thoughts on where this is now? It's not where it's going. It's where it is today where, I mean, hell, you can't even keep up with it, right? Who's in it and where you have to – I mean, you could probably spend you could dedicate a show just trying to see where every kid has gone and landed and transferred to and who's in there. But overall, what do you think about it, Ryan?
Well, it's just the wild, wild west. And what the part of it that drives me crazy is when the coaches complain about it, or the coaches, have, it's the wild, wild west and we can't keep track. They wrote the rules. This thing was created by them. And a lot of coaches saw this as a short-term fix for some problems. And certainly if you are the head coach at Georgia or Alabama or Texas or wherever, you're thinking, well, everybody's going to transfer to my place. And so the rules were written loose on purpose. And I just don't think they understood the monster they were creating. And now they can't put a lid on it. Now the reality is that the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Texas, whoever, they still benefit from it. But it's just keeping track of it. You're right. I mean, listen, at ESPN.com every Thursday we have our writers Zoom, right? It's me and it's Heather Daunic and it's Chris Lowe and it's Slayball and it's Adam Rittenberg and everybody you've ever heard of and a lot of editors you haven't. And we all, if someone mentions the transfer portal, it blows the call up because we spend the next 45 minutes trying to figure it out. And so, to me, that just kind of sums it up, which is you just handle it the best you can until they try to kind of put the lid on it. But what I worry about is the group you didn't mention, which is there's the kids that are leaving, and then there's the kids that are going somewhere, and you're trying to recruit those guys. But there's a lot of these guys are going to land nowhere, and that goes to the high school recruits. I mean, they're talking about in the state of Texas, they're talking about colleges giving out like half as many scholarships to high school kids as they did 2 years ago because they're holding on to that money and on those roster spots for transfers. And so there's a rollover problem here that I don't think we can fully comprehend yet. And to me, that's the story. The long-term story when we look back 20 years from now is going to be all the kids that got screwed because they were convinced that the transfer portal was the right move for them and they landed nowhere, or the transfer portal cut them off when, they thought they had a chance to come out of high school and go play college football somewhere.
What's realistic for Josh Heupel and UT this season? Like what should be a building block? Everybody feels good about the direction it's headed. What's the realistic number? Wins.
All right, now you sound like all my in-laws and my college roommates. Folks that don't know I went to UT, and so these are the conversations I have, casually around the fire pit right now. And what I have told them all. And, man, I feel like I'm saying that. I've said this every year for the last 15 years, but you need to root for a winning record and a bowl berth. That's what you need to root for. You don't need to root for 11 wins, and you don't need to root for the college football playoff, and you don't even need to root for a New Year's Day game. You need to root for a postseason football game. I live here in Charlotte. We will gladly welcome you to whatever we're calling the Boat Bowl now. That'd be great. And so to me, that's what the goal needs to be. The goal needs to be a head above water, postseason game, and try to get, and again, for the upteenth time I'm saying this, try to get some sort of foundation / springboard built so that you can try to be something better 4 years from now.
Talking to Ryan McGee from ESPN. Ryan, another regional question for you. We always seem to bounce all around the map with you, which is fun. You've got the Carolina Hurricanes over in Raleigh playing the Nashville Predators in the NHL playoffs right now. I'm just curious, from where you sit, I know Charlotte's not next door to Raleigh or anything like that, but, with it being the Carolina Hurricanes, they're a really good team. They've started to build the last couple of years more attention. What kind of attention do they get in Charlotte?
It's the NASCAR series.
Well, it's interesting because I grew up in Raleigh. But I've lived in Charlotte now for 20-plus years. And when you grow up in Raleigh, they teach you that Charlotte is evil. And when you live in Charlotte, they say, well, don't go to Raleigh because all they do in Raleigh, that's where the state legislature votes to build roads in Raleigh, and they won't fix the streetlights in Charlotte. So there's always been – every state kind of has the one city and then the rest of the state. And Charlotte has always kind of had this, for whatever reason, kind of standoffish thing with Raleigh. And it's funny because I go to Raleigh, and people don't go crazy for the Panthers because they don't feel like that's their team. And you're in Charlotte, and people they root for the Hurricanes fine, but they don't live and die by the Hurricanes in Charlotte. So there's always been, from my driveway to the arena, to Carter Finley Stadium, and to the arena where the Hurricanes play. I mean, I can be there in 2 hours and change, and you would think it's a lot further than that. And so, yeah, to answer your question, people in Charlotte are rooting for the Hurricanes, but it's not like, people aren't flying car flags and going crazy. When they were in the Stanley Cup Finals, it got a little buzz, just like when the Panthers went to the Super Bowl. I think it had a little buzz in Raleigh, but for whatever reason, people in Memphis, I don't think spend a lot of time going crazy over Nashville and vice versa.
100%.
Right. And so to me, when I lived in Tennessee, that's kind of how I felt. I was like, all right, it's kind of, you kind of have the two different big cities that kind of do their own thing. And, wherever the Oilers were going to end up is where they were going to end up.
Ryan, I know you watch.
I just dated it again, right? Like so now all the young Titans fans are like, what the hell are you talking about with the Oilers? And they're all getting good.
That's right, they're Oilers. Ryan, I know you follow college baseball. We were just referencing a great game from the past. SEC baseball, it's interesting. Maybe because early in the season, the crowds were down. You could hear the jawing back and forth from the dugouts. Now, of course, the crowds are growing, and we've had some huge crowds here recently. But, I saw Tony Vitello get thrown out of a game when they played Vanderbilt. There was an exchange between Vitello and the Arkansas coach last weekend. I've watched some Vanderbilt games. People love beating Vanderbilt, and that's part of being a top dog, right? You get excited when you beat them. Florida, man, there was some jawing back and forth between those two teams. They just played Ole Miss. SEC baseball is it's really amazing to me. It's so competitive, right? It's so deep. And I don't know what the right word is, but I don't know if everybody likes the yapping, but certainly you can appreciate the emotions on how and how big each game is.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all heard, but in the SEC, it just means more. That's what they. No, but
this
no,
falls into line with that, right?
Right. Yeah, but it's true though, and it's funny because when I travel around the country and they ask me about I'm a college baseball junkie. I wrote a worst-selling book about the College World Series years ago, and so I love going to classic places. When I go to the West Coast, I went to a Long Beach State, Cal State Fullerton game. I was so excited to be there. I went to a Cal Stanford baseball game. I was so excited to be there, and it was nice, but I kept waiting on somebody to get mad at somebody. And it didn't happen because, even 100 years ago when I was in college, there was an intensity level to it. So you guys know I was in Nashville a couple weeks ago. I'm working on a big story about they got a couple pretty good pitchers down there at Vanderbilt right now, and I'm working on a story about those guys. And I hadn't seen Coach Corbs since we were standing on the field in Omaha in 2019 after they won the championship. And he came in, and he knew I was a Tennessee guy. He goes, we had a big series with your alma mater last weekend. I said, yeah. I said, how'd it go? He goes, those fans had a lot to say about my relationship with my wife. And I was like, yeah, but that's just, and he's laughing about it, but it's just, there's an intensity level to it. And listen, there are so many teams in the conference that are ranked, and all of these teams are fighting not just, they know they're in the tournament, they're fighting to host a regional and maybe a super regional. And so those numbers are so important. And I think you see the pressure of that because you don't really see it with the kids. You see it with the coaches because I think the pressure is on with those guys right now, and everybody understands that. But yeah, it is super, super intense. And hey, that's why they're all really good at it.
We're talking to Ryan McGee of ESPN about a variety of different things, also on the SEC network. But the Nashville Fairgrounds, we know last week they opened it up for the people to come out and either give their support or give their opposition to what Bristol and SMI is trying to do there. And I know that the big thing is that the racetrack's right there in the middle of a neighborhood. You're worried about the noise. Dale Jr. has laid out a lot of things that Marcus Smith is trying to do. Marcus Smith has laid out a lot of things that they're wanting to do, but what's kind of your view as this saga continues with the fairgrounds in Nashville?
Well, I think the racing's coming, and that poor Australian woman who got up there, I want to give her a hug and just go, listen, I got bad news. This ain't going away. And it's just, it's funny. When I used to date my now wife, she lived over in that area, and it wasn't quite the cool place that it is now. It hadn't been gentrified yet, and they all just knew. If you rented an apartment in that area, that listen, the Truck Series is racing this weekend, so that's how that's going to be, or late models or whatever. And so, you see this a lot with classic racetracks. I remember I was in Bakersfield, California one time, and it had the exact same thing. Where all these people were mad. Well, they were mad because the track was quiet for a few years, and they built all these places, and all of a sudden the track woke up. And so, this battle was inevitable. But the reality is that I think that what people are eventually going to figure out is that this is not a bad thing, if all of a sudden, I live here in Charlotte. We just had the golf tournament at Quail Hollow a couple of weeks ago. And at first, for 20 years, they wanted to bring the PGA tournament back to Quail Hollow. And then it came back and everybody complained. Oh, I can't go to the grocery store. Why does the blimp make all this noise hovering over my house? And it kind of went through all that for about 2 years. And then once everybody got used to the routine of it, then it was okay. So yeah, this battle was always coming. I haven't looked into it in the last week. Next will be the environmentalists, because they're the ones that have successfully shut down racetracks. I remember Jessica Lange going crazy when they were going to build a racetrack in New York one time, and so that'll be next. And those battles are fair, and those questions are fair. But the reality is that I think this thing is rolling now to the point that folks are probably, if you don't want your windows to rattle, from time to time, then you're probably going to have to move on outside of town.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's people also miss the fact it's a historic landmark. So that protects
it. Well, and people don't, and you guys know this, a lot of people don't want to put the word historic next to a racetrack.
Right.
When they hear racetrack, it's a shirtless, drunk dude and whatever else. And that's sort of fair too. These are my people. But, all of my friends that live in Speedway, Indiana, they were all texting me last week and said, hey, we've had a racetrack here since 1908, and we've managed to make that work.
Yeah, no, and it's worked well for them. I was in Dover this weekend for the race. It was good to be back at a racetrack. And obviously they're getting ready. They had their weekend, and they're getting ready for June here in Nashville. What are kind of some of your thoughts on the super speedway and NASCAR is back in the market now? There could be a potential of they could run both tracks at some point in time with the 3 national series, but I know everybody that I talked to that was at the track was like, oh yeah, we're coming to Nashville. We all want to be in Nashville. So what are kind of some of your thoughts on race weekend in June?
Well, I think first of all, it was a super smart move by the Dover folks, to move that date out there, because that was one of those you either move that date and survive financially, or you don't move that date and you lose that date. And so it just made a lot of sense. And I'll tell you this: I mentioned being out there a couple of weeks ago. We took off, and I'm looking out the window. I'm like, please fly over the track. Please fly over the track. And we flew over the track. And I was so excited because I hadn't seen it in so long, and it looks great. I mean, the last time I flew over it, you could tell it was not occupied. And so what I will say, and I think I've said it to you guys before, and I'll say it to your audience now, I'm a Rockingham, North Carolina kid. That's where I was born. That's where I'll be buried. And I can tell you firsthand, a ticket is a vote.
Yep.
And if you want those races, then you got to show up. Because if you don't, then you have given them the excuse to not race there again. And so if you want racing back at the fairgrounds, then the best thing you could possibly do is show up to the Speedway. And if you want racing at both, then you really need to show up at the Speedway. And if you want racing at all, I say it all the time, a ticket is a vote. I never forget when the Truck Series came back to Rockingham, and they had worked so hard to get that place reopened. And I remember the first race, crowd was great. The second race, the moment I hit the parking lot, I said to my wife, I go, they're screwed. Yeah. Because if you don't buy tickets, and I told my cousins and my family this, if you don't buy a ticket, then there's no way they could possibly know that you want it. And so that's my advice is if race fans, if you want it to stay there, then you need to show up.
So what do you think about this? The report coming out this morning, Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. He's been offered a driver role and then ownership with Roush Fenway to take over, I guess, reportedly the 6 car. When I read that this morning, I kind of went, I don't know if I'd leave Penske for that. But I said the same thing about Tony Stewart when he left Gibbs to form Stewart-Haas, and we see how that's turned out.
Well, this is the future of how this is going to work. Which is a stake in the race team is going to be what's going to be offered, or the ability to, or look at the Joe Gibbs, Denny Hamlin situation. Letting your guy start a business on the side, a Cup Series team that he co-owns with Michael Jordan. Ultimately that's good for business. He's getting all of his gear from Joe Gibbs Racing, and so I think this is the future of what these contracts are going to look like. And I know Brad well enough to know he's always trying to think 5 steps ahead. Denny's the same way. And so these guys know they're closer to the end of their career than they are to the beginning of their career. And so, yeah, the performance hasn't been there for Roush Fenway, hasn't been there for a while. But if you're Brad and you're thinking about, all right, what can I do to make sure that I'm still involved in the sport? What can I do to make sure that I'm in the best financial position I can be in for 10, 15, 20 years from now? Then I, whether he takes it or not, he has to look at it. And so I think this is what we're going to see going forward, especially with Hall of Fame veteran guys who've won championships, which is what Brad Keselowski is. And so if you want to poach a driver, if you want to get him to come over to your place, you got to offer him something that where he is currently isn't going to do it. And this is certainly that opportunity. Whether he takes it, I don't know. But I think that, this is what we're going to start seeing more and more and more going into the future.
Ryan, as we wrap this up, what's Tim Tebow going to be doing this fall?
Well, as a proud cast member of SEC Nation, and I have been since the beginning, that's a great question. But I know he is going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar to some extent. Whether that's just camp, whether that's just workouts, whether it's whatever. He's giving it a shot. And I've said this before, the people who criticize Tim Tebow for playing baseball or for, working out with the Jacksonville Jaguars, I just laugh because guess what? If the Jaguars called you, and I'm saying you as in anyone who can hear me right now, your butt would show up and work out. And if the New York Mets called and said, we'd like to offer you a tryout, then they would call you. I know this for a fact about the Tebow situation. He did not call them. They called him. And so if the team calls and says work out, listen, I am old, and I would blow both my hamstrings out the first time I tried to run a 40-yard dash. But if the Jags called, I would be on an airplane right now.
Yeah. Hey, good stuff as always. We appreciate the visits. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Y'all too. Appreciate it.
All right, that is Ryan McGee. Always good to talk to him from ESPN. We'll come back, give you a chance to win some tickets to that race in June to close out the third hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase. That's next. Special thanks to Ryan McGee. Always good to chat with him. You better be calling right now. You just heard that promo. Call in on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The number 615-737-1025, 737-1025. A pair of tickets to the Tennessee Lottery 250, the Xfinity race, on Saturday, June 19th at the Nashville Superspeedway. The person who can call in to Elijah and give him the correct answer is going to win those tickets. And the question is, the first ever race, which, Willie, we were out there, first ever race, broadcasting live. It was an all-day affair, the Pepsi 300 in 2001. The first ever race, which was at the time, was it Busch? The
Yep.
Busch Series? It was an Xfinity. So I guess at the time it was the Busch Series. Who won the first ever race at the Nashville Superspeedway, the Pepsi 300? Is it A, David Green? Is it B, Greg Biffle? Is it C, Michael Waltrip? Is it D, Carl Edwards? Who won the first ever race, the Pepsi 300 in 2001 at the Nashville Superspeedway? Was it A, David Green, B, Greg Biffle, C, Michael Waltrip, D, Carl Edwards? If you can correctly guess that to Elijah, you will win tickets to that Xfinity race on that Saturday, June 19th. It's going to be a heck of a weekend.
Wasn't David Green quarterback in Georgia back then?
No, David Green is somebody that Green family, they did a lot of racing. He was a great guy from Kentucky, and we used to interview him a lot over the years. Great guy.
He raced.
I am very
wanna say he
excited
was a
to tell
track
you
champion
that
at the
I know
fairgrounds.
the answer. I do remember the answer.
You do remember the answer?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
I got this. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I
I had it before you gave the choices.
Really?
I too know the answer.
See, I gave the choices. I wasn't sure if this was gettable without cheating. There's got to be a way to cheat. So there always is. If you have the internet, there's got to be a way.
Right, but that takes time. And if you know the answer, boom, you're already on the digits and you got this.
Do we have a winner?
I think
we do have a winner.
Okay, that did not take long. Did not take long. So, Willie, I'm
Who
going to
is
give
it?
you – I want to hear – who's the correct answer?
I was there. It was Greg Biffle.
The Biff.
Look at you. Look at you. Boom. Greg
good.
Biffle.
Carl Edwards.
Honestly, that was a really exciting weekend. We interviewed – I believe we interviewed Jimmy Johnson a couple days before that,
we
didn't we?
interviewed
Yeah,
anybody and
he would have
everybody.
raced there.
Yep.
That would have been his only year racing there.
Yep.
In the 92 Excedrin car.
I mean, I think we did like a 3 or 4 hour show out there. It was a big to-do. And by the way, all those drivers all won at the Nashville Superspeedway.
Yes.
They all won the Pepsi 300.
Carl Edwards won 5 times in the Xfinity Series, 1 time in the Truck Series. He owned that track.
I will give you
He
another
liked
great
concrete.
story.
He liked the concrete surface for sure.
Mhm.
Concrete Carl.
Yep.
I'll give you another great story from our adventures at that racetrack back in the day, Darren. We did a pre-show one time. Our buddy Norm Parton and Terry Bradshaw came over. He was part of the show leading up to the race coverage.
Yes.
So I was there. I certainly wasn't weighing in a whole lot about the race, but I was, just having fun, talking. And the Marines were there, and they had a pull-up bar. And we had a huge crowd.
Monster crowd.
Getting ready to go in. And the Marines are just whipping up the pull-ups. Just boom, boom, boom. And they're like, who wants to come on there? Who wants to do it? And Norm and Terry are like, Willie, go on down there. Show them how many pull-ups you can do. I was like, all right. So, I was younger. I did go into the weight room, but I was certainly not Marine level. So I did about 6 pull-ups, right? And the crowd's going crazy. 1, 2. But, of course, you know how it gets. Like, each one gets a little tougher. And then you're getting to the exhaustion. The crowd is cheering me on, and I got like the 7th one just barely, and then I collapsed off the thing. Everybody's clapping and cheering and laughing at me. And Terry Bradshaw turns to Norm Parton and he says, if you had $1 million to give Willie if he got the 8th pull-up, he wouldn't have been able to do it. And everybody just started busting out laughing. It was a great story.
I believe
I gave it my all.
Well, I'm not sure that
for Tennessee
either one of us could have done more than 7. So I'm pretty sure you did. I think at that point I missed that because I don't remember. I mean, I remember what you're talking because I was listening, but I think they had shipped me into the infield. And if you remember, I was doing reports from like pit row of, with like the tire changer. I was learning that.
You could talk to anybody
Because you have to remember,
anybody.
Chase, we were new. This was like hockey coming here. It was just all this stuff was new to us. I mean, that's when I learned that they glued the lug nuts on. I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff. Like they let me do that to the actual tires. Like I learned a whole lot of stuff because they had shipped me into the infield and given me access to anything and everything, and they would just pop in from time to time, and I would do a report on the tires or what have you.
Speaking of,
I do remember listening to that, but Willie, I did not get to actually see that. I do remember that moment, though.
Are you looking at the camera, looking at Zoom right now?
I am.
I'm holding up 3 lug nuts that I brought back from Dover, and they still have the glue on them. So
nice. Whose tire?
Bowman, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked these up outside of Bowman's pit.
All right. Very good. All right, we'll come back. We will talk to Terry Crisp to begin the final hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase. We'll also announce our winner, and they're going to go to the Nashville Superspeedway in June. We'll do all that next here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Fourth and final hour. Darren, Daunic, and Chase on this Tuesday afternoon. Hope everybody's had a great day to this point as the four fingers go up. That means final hour. Congratulations, Matt Bowden. Matt Bowden?
Correct.
Matt Bowden correctly guessed, Elijah? Greg Biffle.
Greg Biffle.
So you didn't take very many calls. That's good.
I had more calls before you asked the question than calls after you asked the question.
Matt correctly guessed Greg Biffle, and he will be there at the Xfinity race that Father's Day weekend in June. Let's say hello and good afternoon to Terry Crisp, the legend. The legend here in town. Nothing more needs to be said. Crispy, what did you make of Game 1 last night in Raleigh?
Well, for 2 periods we were in the game, and for 2 periods we were doing well, and we were hanging in with them. but it sort of played out the way we were maybe afraid that might turn out if we didn't stay with them and work them for the full 60 minutes. And in the third period, they sort of flexed their muscles and whatnot. But going over my game notes last night when I got home with my buddy Jack and I were talking about it. And we got looking back.
Does he talk back?
Did you drive to Lynchburg last night?
I knew you'd catch it. I knew you would. And, but when you look back at the game and the first couple of goals, I mean, heck, Teravainen was that mid-air deflection with one hand on the stick that South had no chance on that one at all. And Stahl's goal that made it 2-1, that irritated me when he walked down right through our two defensemen, and then that angle shot he took that was impossible, but only a true vet and pro guy could do it. And then we tied it up hollow. We were running with them, but in the third period, they sort of went to work on us. Niederreiter's goal was just a total breakdown in our zone. For that one, left them all alone in the slot. And then again, Stahl comes down, and he will. I mean, there must have been 10 people in front of Saros on his goal. It went through every skate, every stick, and through the 5 hole. So, it's not a total washout. But we do have to learn from that game is that when we play our game, we can run with them, but we better keep it going the whole time.
Terry, I would be disappointed if this show did not have our head on a swivel when you made that comment. We've learned from the best.
Dan, I will tell you what. The first thing that popped into my mind after Niederreiter scored what ended up being the game-winning goal was the Crispyism. It was head on a swivel. I looked at Mace, and we were thinking the exact same thing.
So you can't just sneak in a Jack comment or a hockey phrase. We got our head on a swivel when we're talking to you. We know what we have to do. So
if you looked at my notes, you'd have saw it with a few adjectives alongside of it. Willie's been privy to some of my notes.
Yes, I have. And I'm just glad they have not made it on the air.
Let me just tell you, if the Predators are looking. If the Predators are looking for a good auction item, I think I'd pay good money to see your notes, Crispy. You can go to the foundation.
Oh, man.
Take us through with your coach hat on. You've been through all this before. You understand this time of year when you're in postseason play. So you can't get too high. You can't get too low. That's kind of what Eric Holla was talking about last night after the game. And so with that being said, and John Hines too. Usually there's adjustments being made, and not only adjustments, it could include lineup changes. But how do you approach it as a coach? It's just one game, but it didn't go your way, and now there's every game that you don't get, there's a sense of urgency. So how do you approach it as a head coach and a staff?
You know what? As a coach, I go through it so many times, and you don't want a knee-jerk reaction. That's the last thing you want. And Coach Hines alluded to the fact before the game that if things didn't go right, he said, we're not adverse to, and he wasn't, but he was just being a very honest, open coach, saying that if things go wrong and we lose it, we'll ascertain how did we lose it, why did we lose it, did we lose it because our system failed us, did we lose it because our power play couldn't get a shot on net or couldn't get set up, our penalty kill, he'll go through all those. But I think the one thing that he will look at, and he said this, and I loved him when he said it, if our system's there and they're playing it, then obviously it's the individuals. Now, what individuals? And he said we have a team identity, which we love. We have. That's what got us into the playoffs, by the way, was our team playing identity. He says at the same time, we have individual identities, what we expect from certain individuals, and they have every right to expect a performance from certain individuals. And the question now is that the coaching staff will be looking at is, okay, for 2 periods, our system was working. In the third period, it let down a little bit, but where did it let down? We didn't forecheck like we normally do. We weren't aggressive, pushing the play like we normally did. And we certainly weren't, like I said, head on a swivel in the defensive zone. So we can correct that. Then you move on. Okay, if we can correct that, if that's where the breakdown was, let's go to the individual part. What individuals, when you sit down as a coaching staff and you hash it out, who are you happy with? You got an A, B, and a C level. You have any of your A players in your A level? How many in your B level? How many in your C level? And you've only got so many you can change. Like there's only a couple. You're not going to make a monumental full house cleaning on this, because the guys work together to get here. Those are the guys who are going to continue as if we're good enough to do it. And let's take into account every time, Carolina Hurricanes are a good team, a solid team. They won our division. They were in the running for a while to be the President's Trophy, which means the best in the NHL. So let's don't go poo-pooing an effort or what we did. Let's just correct it and get on to the next game.
It was very clear he was upset over the penalties last night, the stick penalties. Did that also drive you crazy as a head coach? Because you always hear coaches and players talk about that's the one thing you can control, and obviously the Predators didn't do a good enough job with that last night. A lot of stick penalties. How did you feel about that as a head coach?
You know what? To me, those are so what's the word I'm looking for? So up to referee's judgment. Like when a guy cuts sharp going around behind the net, and your stick is close to his skate, but you don't touch him, and it looks like your stick took the feet up from under him, but didn't touch him. Penalties called. That wasn't your fault because the ref didn't see it all, but it's done, and that happens to a few of them. And like Forsberg, he was trying to lift the guy's stick, not take a thing. And the guy moved his stick enough that Forsberg missed it and got a high sticking. That wasn't intentional. That wasn't a dumb penalty. That was a high sticking because Forsberg was trying to lift the stick and get rid of it. But like the coach says, those are things we have to be leery of, aware of, and do them. And he's right. He's dead on right. And I liked his answer when he was asked about, did your team go over the line in the physicality department? And Pete Weber and I was talking in the parking lot after, and I said, Pete, you remember that old term that, if you're getting bullied and hitting around, just turn the other cheek. Yeah? Well, in hockey, if you turn the other cheek, they're going to smack it too. Then you have two sore cheeks.
Terry Crisp is with us with some great insights on Game 1 and looking ahead to Game 2 tomorrow night. Crispy, the first, I'm sure on the morning show they did the same thing that our show did, and I'm sure Jared's show later today they'll do the same thing. Everybody's going to weigh in and say, hey, they should have put so-and-so in, and let's take this guy out. You can appreciate, and this is because Darren threw it back at every caller that had a suggestion. And that was like, okay, you're the coach. Tell me what you do. Who do you take out? You can appreciate this more. I have heard you tell the story a number of times. I think it's great. You guys won a Stanley Cup. You guys were up 3-1. So everything that you guys had done up to that point is working. But yet you had some agonizing choices to put into the lineup for what ends up being the championship moment in 1989, the clincher. And this is in Montreal. The whole hockey world's watching. Just take us through like the emotions of having to make those choices as a coach, because I know how much that really was hard for you.
That's the hardest thing of a coach. The coaching part is easy. X and O's on the ice, figuring out your practices, figuring out playoff, penalty kill, whatever. The hard part is that every guy in that dressing room wants to play. And every night, if you have 22 or 23 players, 2 or 3 cannot play. It's numerically impossible. And you have to walk in, and you just know it when you're walking towards them. Like I used to hate when some of the coaches you walked into the dressing room, and the way you knew if you're playing or not was your jersey hanging on your stall. If you walked in and your jersey was hanging, you played. If it wasn't, remember that baseball one, Willie, where the guy, when you open your locker at training camp, and there's a red sticker in there or whatever, and
right,
guys got that. To me, that's not the way to do it.
Are you quoting Major League, the movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. The guy where you hammer the guys because they played a joke on him.
Right.
Charlie Sheen. They stuck it in Charlie Sheen.
They put the red sticker in there, and they played a joke on him. He actually made the team.
And that's the hardest one. And that game you're alluding to, if we win that game that night in Montreal, we win the Stanley Cup. And I have 3 players that have been with the team from day one. 3 veterans, 3 good guys, 3 guys that have worked their buns off for years to get to this moment. And I can only play one of them. That was the longest day of my life. I get up in the morning, I walk the streets of Montreal. I went early to the rink, called my assistant coaches in. We talked about it. We finally made the decision. Called the one guy in who was playing. He's obviously happy. tell two guys they're not. And to this day, I hope that they forgive me. I hope that they have gotten over, because you know why? I'm going to tell you this story. When I was a player, and we were playing for the Cup against the Buffalo team, Sabres, and I'd played most of the games up until it was the sixth game in Buffalo. And if we win that sixth game, we win the Cup. And Freddie comes in and tells me I'm not playing. And I've been playing all along, playing with them, and I was devastated. But the guys went out and played their hearts out, and we won it. And one of the guys that replaced me, he scored the winning goal. So you go and you live with it. And for a long time, I was upset with Freddie, but I asked him when I got to him, I said, why did you do that? He said, Christy, because he said, I wanted you for the seventh game back in Philly. You know, I said, Freddie, there wasn't a seventh game. Yeah, I know that's pretty good, wasn't it? So there's no easy way out. But when I made the decision in Montreal, it was the longest day of my life to do it. And since then, I've just hoped that the guys that I had to sit out have forgiven me.
You're another guy that can appreciate the balance between, you've got to have enough skill to win, but you also have to have that toughness. And there's no question that Nashville wanted the toughness in there. They went with Matthew Olivier. They went with Tanner Jeannot, both in the same lineup for the first time on the season. How did you try to arrive at what the right balance is? Because that's a tough thing to do as well.
You know what it is? You two things come into it. Who is your best to win that given night? Who do you feel have it? And when we were thinking, and you also think of the team. And the team, like, if you pull this guy out, is the rest of the team going to be ticked off because they felt he should have played? Or if you pick these two guys, not as much, not so much so. Does it bother the rest of your team? And I got to tell you one thing as a player, when the coaches make that decision, every player, not every player because most of them are going to play, but 3 or 4 of the players are saying, and let's be honest, in your heart and in your soul, thank God he picked him and I'm playing in his place. You don't say it out loud and never be said, but that's going through your heart and your mind. I get to play. I'm in there now. And I'm going to say this out loud. I totally, if I'm a coach and I'm sitting here, I totally agree with what Coach Hines and his team staff picked for last night's game. Totally. I have no qualms about it, no second guessing in my part about it. He put together, if I was putting a lineup together, I'd have been probably right on with Coach Hines and them for that game, for what we thought was going to happen, for what we know we need. And don't anybody try and tell me as a coach or a player when I played, and I wasn't one of the ones, but that you don't need physicality. And by the sense of physicality, I mean guys to keep a check on guys who are going to run our Yossi's and our Forsbergs and our Arvies and whoever. Because they're not big enough. They'd like to, but you think that they're going to back off and not do it. But I tell you what, when you have 3 or 4 of the guys in there that we have, and they're in the lineup, they're not so quick to do it. They're not so fast to spank them around when they know they're going to have to answer the bell to some of those guys. So don't tell me that physicality, and you know what it's called? It's called intimidation. And our whole world is intimidation. The business world is intimidation. I've told Willie this before. If I walk into a court and I'm a lawyer, I look across and see who the opposing lawyer is, and he's one of the top opposing lawyers in the country, one of the best, I'm thinking, oh, my Lord, what am I in for against this guy in the courtroom? That's life. That's sports. And everybody's mind goes the same way. But intimidation better be smart intimidation, too.
We're talking to Terry Chris, Predators analyst and Stanley Cup winning player and coach as well. How much, and when talking about lineups, and I kind of asked this to David Poyle earlier, how much overthinking happens this time of year of whether it's overthinking, second guessing, whatever you want to put into it of, okay, I got my lineup, it's written down, but what if I want to do this? Or if I did this for game one, what if I want to change this? How much of that from a coach's point of view happens this time of year?
Not a lot. You know your team. You know who you got. You know what you need. You know what you want. You're not going wholesale for your changes. Now, you make a couple possibly, But looking on your lineup and looking up and down, is it going to be that much of a difference? I don't think so. People, they love the sporting world. They love to second-guess coaches. They like to hammer on players. That's okay. That's been the worldwide, and it's going to happen as long as there's sports. But the coaches have to decide in their minds, not the team, but the coaches, as to who is going in and that, and who do they switch, or do they go with the same lineup? And we have seen this happen before, where coaches take guys out and then wish they hadn't, but don't put them back in for the next game because, well, we did this and that. No, it's part of the game. It's just part of the game, and if you want to change two players, you change them. But I can guarantee you that Coach Hines and his staff will be sitting there and going through the tapes, and they'll be having, like, I guarantee you, they'll be having discussions, like man-to-man discussions on the lineup and who's coming out and who do we put in.
How much do you think somebody like Tolvanen, if he goes in for game 2, maybe carries the I'm ticked off because I wasn't in game 1, but that's a good thing. Like, I say that in a good way, of how much he would carry of that chip on his shoulder, and how much are you looking for that as a coach?
Yeah, Tolvanen is a different case. He's still a youngster. I still think that he is still not where he's going to be in the NHL. And this is me talking, nobody else. I like him. We know he can shoot the puck. We know when he was on the power play, the guys were feeding him, he was doing it. But he went cold, and he was getting banged around, and he was trying his best to get back into it. So he's still a kid. He'll learn. He'll come. But is he that much difference that what we had in there just to make a change for the sake of making a change? Or who do you pull out and put Tolvanen in? That weighs heavy on it, in my opinion, as a coach. And like anybody else, the guys who sat out, like Richardson and Cousins and Tolvanen and Grimaldi, et cetera, down there, they want to play. Sure they do. But they're also team players. And they fully realize that the coach, now if they make changes, the guys coming out will have to accept the same thing. Hey, the coach made it because he feels these two will do it. So be it. That's sports.
So we always Darren brought this up earlier, getting more traffic in front of the net, and that's something that's a go-to argument, and it's a valid one for sure. That you got to have more traffic in front of the net. If you're drawing up the plays and trying to do that, how do you execute that? How do you get more traffic in front of the net, and also picking up rebounds? Because Carolina did a good job of that last night.
You damn well tell the guys who should be in front of the net. You're not going to send your small. There's certain guys who can go to the front of the net. They can be effective. They're not going to get banged around. They're going to hang in there. They're going to be gritty and greasy and miserable. So when they go over the boards, each line should know who the heck has got it and who has it and who's going to do it. But having said that, you don't mind going to the front of the net, but you want to get rewarded for it. By rewarded, I mean the guys who have the puck. And last night this didn't happen. If you got the puck, I want that puck coming through traffic on net. I want a chance to tip it in. I want a chance to get a loose rebound. I want a chance to screen the goaltender. And suddenly last night in the third period especially, we weren't shooting the puck. We were looking for a fancy pass off to the outside. And we had chances to shoot that puck down the gut, right down the slot, before they could get there to block it or to set up in front. If our guy, we didn't do it. We didn't have enough. I'm still thinking, if you watch the Carolina team playing, they're shooting from all over. I know the attempts sometimes are fudge, but they're not waiting. Good passes. Now the first one's clear. It's quick. Boom. And the guys going to the front of the net, they know that the puck's coming. Let's stay here and let's arrive there. And I love the way Carolina do it. They don't hesitate. They do it. Tampa does it like that all the time. Florida does it. It's successful. So, to me, I just think we've got to start getting our shots off quicker. When the lane's there, it's going to close in half a second. It's going to close in a second. Let the puck go before that second comes. Get it through. Let the guys down in front of the net that are willing to pay a price have something to do.
Crispy, great stuff. The passion has been brought. Let's hope the Predators bring it tomorrow.
They will. They'll be there. The boys fought their hearts out to get here. We were done, finished, stick a fork in them like dinner, done, and they just fought their way back. So we're still with them, and we're still there. And as Willie says, and May said, hey, it's only one game, boys. Crank it up.
Absolutely. Crispy, appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime, guys.
He is the great Terrence Arthur Crisp, a Stanley Cup winner, and brings the passion every broadcast and every time that he's on with us. We'll have more. You're going to hear from John Hines here in just a little bit. But first, Willie, talk to us about the loans.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Remember, as the weather gets a little warmer, the school year ends, you might have a little bit more focus on some projects that maybe have been on the list for a while, but you haven't been able to just have the time to execute it. Housing prices right now, as we know, the value is really high, through the roof kind of high. That means you're probably sitting on a lot of home equity if you've been in your home for a while. So maybe it's time to turn that equity into cash that you can use now. And maybe you can use it to pay off some debt. You might want to take that cash and put it back into your home, reinvest with a home improvement project. Well, how do you do that? Loan Pronto has the answer for you. Loan Pronto can refinance your loan at a super low rate that gets that monthly payment down. They pay the closing costs for you, and they get you a bunch of cash out. I mean, like tens of thousands of dollars. So don't just sit on the home's value. Use it. Use it to pay off the debt. Use it to consolidate other debt. Use it to make your home even more valuable with that home improvement project, the kitchen, the bathroom that you want to upgrade. Loan Pronto's all-digital platform makes it easy. You can get a big check in a couple of weeks. And if you act now, you can even skip the next 2 house payments. Does that sound good for your summer budget? I'll bet it does. Call Loan Pronto right now. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780. Or go to loanpronto.com and find out more. Ask about that zero-cost cash-out refi. Loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender. NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval. Not all loans eligible for zero costs.
Thanks, Bex. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. Appreciate Terry Crisp for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to him. Don't forget to tune in to Robbie and Rex Road this Friday morning at 9:45 for your chance to participate in Nashville SC Pick to Click. So you're going to keep Pick to Click rolling along. On the soccer side of things, call in, win a prize pack, a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game, and that's brought to you by Camarena Tequila. I would love to have a full bottle of Camarena Tequila. Just saying. Back here on the show, head coach John Hines. Just want to see if everybody's got their head on a swivel. Who's paying attention? Who's not?
We're throwing
John Hines
pucks left and right today at the net.
John. I thought I could get through it until
I'm just going to stop. Yeah. What John Hines say?
John Hines spoke to the media today after practice, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, John, on Johansson and Duchene, I know they both had assists last night, but when you looked at the tape, what did you think of their game? And we've seen them play in the past in the playoffs at a very, very high level against some of the best players. Kind of what has to happen for those guys to be able to play at that level against these players with Carolina?
Yeah, well, I think I thought Joey started out strong early in the game. I didn't think it was as good as the game continued to go on. So I think the sustainability of playing at the level that we need him to play at, particularly against Stahl, as the game continues to go on at the same level of intensity, needs to be better for 60 minutes. So I thought there were some good pockets there with him, but we need much more sustainability and consistency as the game goes on, particularly in the playoffs, particularly on the road with matchups. That you got to be able to win your matchups, and you have to be able to do it for longer than 20 minutes. I think as far as Matt, I thought Matt played pretty well. I think that there's some opportunities to get him in there a little bit more, which we will. Sometimes it's the matchups and the way the game goes. But, I thought Matt won a lot of puck battles in the offensive zone. He had the nice assist. I thought a lot of, with the amount that we killed and they come back off the lines. But we're going to need both those guys to be real strong players for us here moving forward.
Good afternoon, John. Similar to Jared's question, how would you evaluate the play of Roman and Ryan last night? And as you consider making lineup changes for tomorrow, how much thought would you put into splitting them up, which you did at times during the regular season? And when you did that, what do you like about having them on separate pairs versus having them together?
Well, I think both guys didn't have their best night, for different reasons. And we expect both those guys to have a strong response going into tomorrow's game. And yes, we've talked a lot after the game, talked a lot of, this morning. I've gone through the video and looking at different things. So it is an option to split those guys up. But I think first and foremost, I think individually, there is better there. I think we all know that they can play better, and they're prideful guys. They're real important guys on our team. And I think a response from them is going to be important tomorrow in their individual games. And then if you wind up, if we do make the decision to split them up, sometimes it could be a different look. It could be the matchups that we feel like, who are they getting out against them? What were the issues that caused some of the problems? So I think it's really a combination of those things.
And you mentioned sustainability in regard to, Ryan and Matt, but I'm curious overall, you guys have had to sustain a high level of play here for a long time just to get here. How much do you have to sustain or even elevate that now that you guys are here in order to, to move on in this series?
Well, we have to, individually, and, I think there's a lot of performances, within our lineup that need to be better from last night. And, we've talked a lot about lineup changes and who's in and who's out, but, there's lots of players that are in the lineup that don't really ever come out, and they need to be better. That's, you need guys, guys that you're expecting to be in your lineup every night, carry big minutes, play hard matchups. There needs to be better from that. And, we're talking about subbing certain guys in. Could be a 5-6 deep pair. It could be, guys that have been in and out of the lineup, some guys that are out of the lineup. But the basic comes down to is we can make those decisions. But the players that are in your lineup every night that you count on to play important roles, play big matchups, be difference makers in the game, there needs to be elevation in those players. And if that gets better, then our team's going to be able to be a better team and be more competitive as the series continues to go on. But first and foremost, that has to take place regardless of any other small lineup decisions you make.
Coach, certainly every day is a chance to get better in the playoffs. How have you gone about it today, and what's the focus been as you prepare for game 2?
Well, we stayed on our routine. I mean, we've been in situations before where, particularly coming down the stretch where we've had some losses where, we lost in Chicago, came back and played one of our best games. We didn't have the opportunity to clinch in Columbus. We came back against the big Dallas game and we're ready to go. So, like we've talked about, is not getting too high and too low, but really understanding what needs to change and what needs to get better. I thought we had a good day today. We had a good conversation, and then tomorrow we'll get back into our routine with, the areas that we have to be better and have a strong focus level on game day. And that hasn't changed, down the stretch. And there's a reason we did it down the stretch. And we've been in this situation before, and the response has always been excellent.
Yeah, John, when looking at skaters who are bigger, taller, heavier in your lineup versus those who are smaller and faster, maybe, what are the differences in how you deploy like kind of those two categories of player to counter a fast skating team? So like, what's the tactical difference that you see in going with bigger guys versus smaller guys to counter that?
Well, I think it really comes down to the individual players and trying to have a little bit of balance of who's in, who's playing with who. Sometimes, we get in the playoff series, what the matchups would be. But at the end of the day, I mean, when you look at Carolina, they're big and fast. And so I think, for us, we have to make sure that, the players that we put in the lineup, as I've said, that, I do think, I think the core principle here, as it was last night after the game, and, a lot of the themes of the questions are some of the guys that are in or out. But, I'll go back to it. The players that we count on every single game here, there needs to be an elevation in their game. And when that happens, the players that play big minutes, the players that play tough matchups, the players that, you're never really considering taking in or out of the lineup, there needs to be an elevation in their game. And that's how you win. That's how you win in the playoffs. Those guys have to be able to produce. And then when you make these other lineup changes, there are additions to that. But the main group here needs to be better.
John, with that in mind, for those top players you're referencing, the ones who get the most ice time, the ones that play the toughest matchups, the ones who are most likely not coming out of the lineup, without the, for lack of a better word, fear of coming out of the lineup, how do you as a coach motivate them when perhaps they don't have, they don't have that idea of coming out of the lineup, perhaps, creeping over their shoulder, so to speak?
Well, that's the responsibility. They're good players. They're prideful guys. They've, there's really no question on that. It's just, how do we help them and how do they help themselves get to the consistency level in the game that we need them to get to? And I think that's what part of it is here. And that's when you're in those roles and you have that responsibility, then, it's the combination of the players and coaches to figure out the way that we need to get to play. But I think when you get to this point in the season, Adam, when you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs and you're going through, it's not about, whether you're going to come in or come out. It's driving a team, wanting to win, competing for the Stanley Cup, playing the best when the chips are on the line. That's all part of that role. It's all part of the responsibility when you're in that role.
There you go, John Hines, after morning skate today in Raleigh. So talking about lineup, talking about game one, what he observed. I think it was pretty interesting. He made a point to keep he emphasized it several times about guys that, they don't rotate in and out of the lineup, how they have to step up their game. And, I guess, if you're just trying to figure out who he's talking about, I think we've hit on a lot of it today on the show. I don't think there's any doubt that UC Saros, who, the second half of the season, who was outstanding. We've talked about his play and how he deserves, because of his play in the regular season, to be a finalist for the Vezina Trophy, although we did learn some things from David Poyle because the general managers do vote on that. When exactly they've got until to vote on that, which is interesting. But he's going to have to be better. He played well. You have to play above and beyond in a series like this. I don't think there's any doubt that
they got to have help too.
Yeah, no doubt. But I mean, this is I think I'm just trying to lay out some of the guys. I
question.
think Roman Yossi and Ryan Ellis are probably guys that he's identifying in this discussion. Matthias Ekholm, I would have to say Mikael Granlund, the way he's played all season, it's got to be better. That entire line has got to be better. And those are guys that they have not rotated in and out of the lineup. So he made a point to bring that up a couple of times, and it's no secret. I mean, your good players are good for a reason, and so they've got to be more than just good to win this series, right? They've got to be an exceptional, and I think that's what he's talking about.
You have very little margin for error against this team. It has come out in so many ways during the course of our discussion today, which I think has been great. I think a great example that he brought to the table, who was the best player on either team last night? It wasn't even close.
It was Stahl.
Jordan Stahl.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And he's got
won the
tons
game.
of experience, been there, done it, right?
And Ryan Johansson was going head-to-head with Jordan Stahl. That was the matchup that Rod Brindamore chose, right? Give me Stahl's line against the Jofel line. And then it was a lot of Mikael Granlund against Aho and Trocheck. I mean, there's a lot that you have to deal with, right? But Johansson didn't play a bad game. You know, he made a great play to get a perfect pass to Forsberg, great finish. And I thought for about half the game, that's a great matchup. It's going back and forth. It's a battle. But by the end of the game, who won the battle? It was Stahl. So now in round 2, it's time for Johansson to up his game, right, and his line mates. So that's just how it works, right? It does come down to one-on-one battles, right? When you boil it down to the simplest terms, right, you can talk about who wasn't in, who was in. The bottom line is the guys that are in there have got to win your matchup. I thought it was really interesting. He talked about Roman Yossi and Ryan Ellis, right? Some coaches would never, ever even hint at matchups and thoughts of maybe adjustments. John Hines is really intriguing in that he gives us the perspective. Rod Brindamore is probably paying attention, to that conversation. Ooh, I wonder what he's thinking about there. Will we see Ryan Ellis and Roman Yossi split up? It's a great question by Adam, right? How do you get the best out of your most important players, especially after a night where they did not win the battle? But I thought that was a great press conference there.
Yeah, if you take anything away from today's show, because in these 4 hours, you've heard the head coach and the general manager basically have the same message of our top guys got to play better. Our team's got to play better. They did not play the way they need to play last night, and they didn't beat around the bush on that, nor should they. And I appreciate that honesty. I know David was an actual interview, and then John was a press conference, but that the message is loud and clear, and I hope the team listens to it.
And I think they're trying, right? Again, we're talking about an underdog. This is the underdog. There's a reason why it's hard. Carolina lost 3 games in regulation the entire year in that building. They're going to have another great crowd tomorrow night. This is not an easy task. The bar is high. Like you were talking about, Darren, you started with UC Saros. He didn't play bad, but he has been pretty much Superman to get him here.
He's been exceptional.
And he's going to have to be that for them to win this series. He knows it. It's not any news to him, and he accepts that.
I'm going to come back and give everybody some more free money.
Let's do it.
That's coming on the way to close out the show. So another opportunity to make some money, okay, to feel good, to go out to a nice meal, get something nice, get a new shirt like I did, whatever you want to do. I'll give you that winner on the other side to close out Tuesday's edition of Darren, Daunic, and Chase. That's next.
This hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase brought to you by Trane. Get a great deal this spring on a new Trane heating and cooling system. At Trane, they test so it runs. Visit TraneInfo.com to find your local dealer and learn more. It's hard to stop a train.
Oh, it's time to double down. You feel good about last night, right? You feel good about the Bruins winning. That money line bet, you'll feel even better after tonight. This is an opportunity to double up your stack right here. Tyrone Bigham, how do you feel about that?
I need these picks, D. You got any more than picks? I need them.
Oh, I got picks, Tyrone. I've got picks. You're going to use those winnings from last night in the Bruins. And tonight, you're going to hit Vegas. On that money line, you're going to hit it hard. You're going to hit it really hard. I've got it at minus 162 on DraftKings. You're going to hit the Golden Knights money line pretty good. Give it a good pop in the nose. And then what I want you to do, since we're feeling a little bit frisky, I want you to do a little dabbling too on the puck line with Vegas.
Now we're talking.
Throw a little bit over there, a little scratch over there on the puck line, because you know what? It's got plus 165, so it's got some really nice odds. So you can increase your pile. I don't want you to go crazy on the puck line, but I want you to throw some scratch on the puck line. Minus 1.5 for Vegas at plus 165 according to DraftKings. But I really want you to sock it right in the nose. I want you to hit that money line hard.
Sock it right in the nose.
Okay? I want you to hit that money line hard.
So you're saying Vegas is not going down 2-0 at home.
They are not.
They are not going down 2-0.
You're going to feel good about your stack
okay.
after tonight's game.
Your stack.
I got minus 160 on BetMGM.
Oh, even better. That's a little bit better odds right now. Let me refresh and see if that's changed.
I tried to tell you guys that Minnesota is not taking that much of a back seat.
I know.
To Vegas.
Well, they will tonight, though, Willie.
But aren't you a little surprised that the odds are? It's not like they're like an overwhelming favorite. Like I think we all think the same thing. They're going to beat them twice in a row in Vegas.
Minus 162 is what I've got. You said you've got minus 160?
Yep.
Okay. No, that's good, because when Vegas wins tonight,
right.
You're a winner.
You'll get better. Yeah.
You get better odds. You get better payout.
Okay. I think I agree with you guys.
Well, if you agree, then you need to go get some free money. Okay, like the rest of us did last night with the Bruins. Had to sweat it a little bit, but that's why they call it gambling. It's not easy. It's not easy.
I'll tell you one I like.
But you know what? The only thing that matters is, did you cash it or not? Did that ticket cash? That's all that matters. It's not how you got there. It's how it finishes. It's not how you got there. It's how you finish. And that's what the Bruins did. They finished them off.
Speaking of finishing, I love that Calgary and Vancouver,
I know. Is there like a more meaningless
You go all the way
games?
to the finish line.
Yeah, you do.
You go to the finish line. You play all the way.
They have got to feel like they are just out there. Right. I was going to say the CPI. I was going to say the CIT. I mean, you're being nice with the NIT.
I'll tell you the one I like, and I like your pick. I'm going to definitely take advantage of that. But
you can put those winnings on Vegas tonight, okay? And do both for me, okay?
I believe the Panthers tie that series up tonight too.
Look, I like
They're going
Florida
with Chris
and Pittsburgh.
Drieger. Did you see that?
Yep.
It took exactly one game for them to say, you know what, our best goalie might be not Bob.
Well, I like Pittsburgh and I like Florida, but I don't like them nearly as much as I do Vegas. So I'm going to stay away, and I'm going to go with the sure thing.
There might be a parlay in my future.
And that could be fun to dabble on that as well. Little money
Tampa
line
and
parlay.
Florida, if it's anything close to the entertainment value of the first game,
oh man,
you are going to want to make a point to tune that game in.
No doubt. It's going to be a great night. Some good games
exciting stuff.
tonight. Yep. Stanley Cup playoffs off and running. We're done for the day, but we plan on being running
TD
for
in the
4
house.
hours.
We got a cameo. All right, let's go Mets. LGM.
Let's go Mets.
Oh my gosh.
Mets 3, Braves 1 in the opener.
He must have heard about Frank Viola earlier in the show.
That's right. TD and I are going to get called up to the roster too, because the Mets are dropping like flies.
No way.
They're not that
Shocking.
desperate though. Yeah.
No way. All right, that'll do it for us. You have a great rest of your Tuesday. We look forward to talking to you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Get you ready for Game 2 in Raleigh between the Predators and the Hurricanes. Have a good one. We'll talk to you then.